Chapter 116. Well, the third question was directed at the bridegroom. The others couldn't help even if they wanted to. Everyone was guessing what the bridegroom would show. This included the group of people who had helped him escort the bride. What was Luo Jinghua most famous for now? Naturally, it was his paintings. Could he paint on the spot? Thinking of this possibility, everyone couldn't help but be a little excited. Many people had only heard of the fine brushwork and had never seen it. But those who had seen it rarely didn't praise it. Luo Jinghua was not in a hurry. He seemed to be prepared. He stretched out a hand behind him, and something wrapped in red silk was placed in his hand. It looked like a relatively large book or something similar. Could it be a painting? Luo Jinghua opened the red silk bit by bit. Unexpectedly, there were books inside. What did he want to do? Luo Jinghua presented the book to Sun Yilin with both hands. "Brother-in-law, please accept it." Then everyone understood. Was this the bridegroom's way of expressing himself? Damn, he actually bribed him directly? This was too treacherous. However, please note that your brother-in-law is not an ordinary person. He has seen all kinds of good things. You want to bribe him with just 2 books? Don't you think it's a bit too wishful thinking? Sun Yilin probably didn't expect to meet someone who didn't play by the rules. It was a talent competition. If you want to express yourself, you should just do it. But can you say that he was wrong? Absolutely not. Sun Yilin stared at the book in Luo Jinghua's hand and frowned. He seemed to be very conflicted. The people who were watching the fun at the gate of Duke Dinghua's mansion began to jeer. They asked Luo Jinghua not to do such a boring thing and quickly do something serious. Luo Jinghua didn't care. He just smiled and looked at Sun Yilin. "Brother-in-law, do you accept it or not? Please tell me." Who was Sun Yilin? How could he marry off his little sister so easily just because of 2 books? He was determined. Yes. Anyway, his little sister was going to get married. Sun Yilin reached out to take the book. At this time, Luo Jinghua suddenly took back his book. "Brother-in-law, you have to make way." Even Sun Yilin couldn't help but grit his teeth. He looked like a mellow and refreshing person, but there was actually a time when he was so slippery. She snatched the book away, and with a light flick of her wrist, she covered the book with the red silk again. She turned around and waved her hand behind her back. "Open the door and make way." Her expression and tone were not very pleasant. This result was completely unexpected. The number 1 young master of the capital was so easily bought. "Jinghua, what book did you give to Mr. Sun? Could it be that even young Master Sun couldn't refuse this unique book?" Chen Zhengmin narrowed his eyes slightly and pondered for a moment. "Did cousin Jinghua give me the Kun Fang Chiu?" Luo Jinghua smiled, apparently agreeing with Chen Zhengmin's guess. Only then did everyone remember that Sun Yilin was famous for being a love-struck fool. It shouldn't be an ordinary beauty chart, right? Our young Master Lin wouldn't be interested in an ordinary beauty chart, right? Of course, it wasn't an ordinary beauty chart. That was a beauty chart created by Jingwan. Few people who loved flowers could refuse it, let alone young Master Lin, who had ulterior motives toward Jingwan. When Sun Yilin saw the small fine brushwork on the cover and the 3 words Kun Fang Chiu, he had already determined who wrote this book. He had long heard that 2 extraordinary beauty charts had come out from Luo Shangshu's hands and had been shamelessly divided by the Grand Secretary and the Minister of Works. Whether it was extraordinary or Jingwan had made a move, it was impossible for Sun Yilin not to be moved. No matter how difficult it was for his brother-in-law, his younger sister had to go out. Why not accept the benefits? His younger sister would also understand. When the people waiting in Sun Yijia's small courtyard found out that the bridegroom had broken into the small courtyard, even Sun Yijia, who was worried that Luo Jinghua would be ruthlessly embarrassed, had the thought of how could it be so fast in her heart. According to Sun Yilin's ability, it didn't make sense for him to be defeated so quickly. Otherwise, why would there be only 2 obstacles? They had high expectations for Sun Yilin and were very confident in him. After listening to the servant girl's report, everyone was silent. 2 books were enough to send the bridegroom away. Was our young Master Lin too easy to send away, or was his opponent too powerful? What kind of book was it? No one saw the cover, but some people guessed that it was a beauty chart. As soon as the servant girl's voice fell, laughter sounded in the room. It turns out that in young Master Lin's eyes, his younger sister isn't even worth 2 ordinary beauty charts. It seemed that they were criticizing Sun Yilin, but no one could tell that they were mocking Sun Yijia. Outsiders said that young Master Lin doted on his younger sister the most, but in reality, that was just the case. Sun Yijia, who was covered with a red veil, smiled. Fifth brother was probably angered by Jinghua. However, when she thought that the person who would become her husband was already outside the small courtyard, she couldn't help but feel nervous, and her palms were faintly sweating. The people blocking the small door were basically all women. In comparison, they were more difficult to deal with, because there were some people who said that they were joining in the fun, but in reality, they were deliberately looking for trouble. It just so happened that on this big day, you couldn't reprimand them. The bridegroom's bridegroom was too stingy, with all kinds of difficulties and teases. The bridegroom was too stingy with all the red envelopes on him. Even the smile on Luo Jinghua's face disappeared, not to mention his brothers. Each and every one of them was infuriated. However, this was a group of women. They couldn't do anything to them. However, some people acted as if they didn't see their expressions and still had a smiling look on their faces. This block lasted for nearly an hour. It was almost the auspicious time to go out. Sun Yijia was extremely resentful. In the past, they would find trouble with her. She had endured it when she saw that the big day was around the corner. However, today they wanted to make it impossible for her to go out. She would record this account and slowly settle it after today. However, these people didn't dare to really miss the auspicious time. It was one thing to make things difficult for them, but it was another thing to make things difficult for them. When Duchess Ding came to settle the account after autumn, it would be enough for them to suffer. Alas, forget it. It seems that our bridegroom is really... Many people also covered their mouths and laughed. However, we are willing to let them go. I just don't know if the bridegroom has moved our sister Jia. Listening to Luo Jinghua being made things difficult for her, Sun Yijia would have stood up several times if it weren't for the old maid gently pressing her haircut. She was a bride and needed to be reserved. She couldn't appear to be anxious. Otherwise, she didn't know how she would be made up. Today, she had to take every opportunity. Second brother, give me the guqin. Luo Jingming took down the guqin case from his back, opened it, and took out the guqin. He closed the case and placed the guqin on the table. He and another person held the guqin at both ends, temporarily acting as a temporary guqin table. Everyone knew what he was going to do. It wasn't that he had never played the guqin at this time before, but it was still relatively rare. However, everyone was curious about what song he would play. Luo Jinghua looked very calm at this time. The anger in his eyes had disappeared. He lowered his eyes slightly and looked at the guqin strings. He suddenly felt that his sister was actually very right. If he had been a little embarrassed before, his heart was exceptionally calm at this moment. His wife was bullied, so naturally, he had to make up for it. Thinking back to the few times he met Yijia, his sister might have exaggerated, but it was undeniable that Yijia was really a good girl. Moreover, he seemed to have unintentionally fallen in love with her. His fingers began to slide on the guqin strings, and decadent music poured out. Accompanied by the sound of the guqin, his lips opened and closed. There is a beauty. I can't forget her. I haven't seen her for a day. I miss her like crazy. The phoenix soars, seeking the phoenix from the 4 seas. Unfortunately, the beauty is not at the eastern wall. Replacing words with guqin, I write my heart. When will I see Sushi? She comforts me. Willing words match her virtue. We will go hand in hand, unable to fly together. She causes me to fall. The lingering sound of the guqin, the cadence, and the bold and explicit lyrics. This famous song was basically known by everyone present. It was called The Phoenix Seeking a Phoenix. But who was the one who wrote that poem? Wasn't it a little too? That's right, Jinghua knew that there was also a famous song called The Phoenix Seeking the Phoenix. The tune was roughly the same, but the only difference was that there were no lyrics. So, for Sun Yijia's sake, Jingwan once again went against her will and copied the lyrics of The Phoenix Seeking the Phoenix. At that moment, this person was all about being reserved. He paid attention to the artistic conception of hugging the pipa and covering half of his face. Not many people could write lyrics like this, let alone read it out in public. In the official circle, Luo Jinghua was definitely the first to do so. Perhaps after this, there would be people who would scold him for being improper and insulting to the refined culture. However, right now everyone was stunned. Even those who knew that Luo Jinghua was going to play the guqin didn't know that there was an even bigger surprise. This person was also a person who amazes everyone with a single brilliant feat. In the room, Sun Yijia's face turned red, but her heart was filled with sweetness. It was obvious that Luo Jinghua's move helped Sun Yijia slap someone in the face, but it also helped her gain more hatred. As long as it was a woman, even if she didn't have vanity, when she was deeply loved by someone, she couldn't help but feel happy. They were born in the inner residence, grew up in the inner residence, and still lived in the inner residence after they got married. If they had an ordinary life, perhaps they would just pass it like that. However, when they were young, few people didn't yearn for love. At this time, someone had indeed obtained something that they might not be able to obtain in their lifetime. How could they not be jealous and hate? How could they not want to replace him? Many people might criticize him, but only these women would be deeply attracted to him. Sure enough, there were some women who looked at Luo Jinghua with infatuation in their eyes. The brothers, standing behind Luo Jinghua, looked at each other. All of them secretly thought that their brother, after today, would become the lover of most women in the boudoir. Not only that, the women in the brothel would probably line up to pour out their hearts to him. Those famous courtesans would probably be willing to throw themselves at him, hoping that he would become a guest. They only earnestly hoped that they could become the phoenix that he spoke of. Luo Jinghua's hands stopped moving. He raised his head and smiled faintly. His eyes were filled with endless gentleness. Even those young women who were already married couldn't help but blush, and their hearts beat faster. They were extremely uneasy, even though Luo Jinghua didn't look at them at all. The auspicious time has arrived. A loud voice interrupted all the charming and gentle atmosphere. Those who were blushing because of Luo Jinghua hurriedly looked away. However, they couldn't help but secretly size him up. They might be biting their lips or wringing their handkerchiefs tightly. Luo Jinghua entered the main hall in the courtyard. Sun Yijia's grandmother and 3 parents were sitting there. Obviously, they had heard Luo Jinghua's previous song. At this moment, they looked at Luo Jinghua with their own complicated feelings. Luo Jinghua was a little embarrassed at this moment. Fortunately, Sun Yijia was almost helped him walking in. Sun Yijia bid farewell and listened to their teachings. Luo Jinghua kowtowed and listened to their instructions. To Sun Yijia, it was nothing more than being filial to her in-laws and serving her husband. To Luo Jinghua, it was nothing more than being kind to Sun Yijia. Even so, Sun Yijia couldn't stop crying in the end. Luo Jinghua solemnly promised. At some point, Sun Yilin appeared again. He was going to carry Sun Yijia onto the bridal sedan chair. However, from the way he looked at Luo Jinghua, it could be seen that he had heard the entire song, a male phoenix seeking a female phoenix. When the bride got onto the sedan chair, the sound of gongs and drums filled the sky again. On the other hand, the Luo family was waiting anxiously. According to the estimated time, it was about time for the bride to return. If they missed the auspicious day of the wedding ceremony, it wouldn't be a good omen. However, at this moment, the Duke of Qin's carriage arrived at the Luo family. When Luo Peishan and the others heard this news, they couldn't help but want to pull their beards. However, it was useless to think so much now. It was more important to hurry and welcome them. Thus, the guests rushed to the main gate. They looked at the people coming in from outside the gate. Well, all the princes who had a place in the imperial court, except for Prince Kong and the princes who relied on him, came to the Luo family. Luo Peishan really wanted to say that the Luo family was too small to accommodate all these big Buddhas. However, on the surface, he had to smile and welcome them respectfully. That day at Aunt's residence, Lord Luo sincerely invited me. Naturally, I have to come. Li Hongyuan said. Many people cursed in their hearts. Your Highness, you have the nerve to say this. Not to mention other things, even if the emperor invited you, you might not even respond. You said so much to give Luo Peishan face. Who knows if he just came here to join in the fun because he didn't want to go to Duke Dingwa's mansion. However, when the people heard the list of gifts that Li Hongyuan often gave, their expressions were wonderful. Not to mention that he directly gave tens of thousands of taels of gold as a gift. There's also a pile of good things. Moreover, just by hearing the name, they knew that some of the things were bestowed by the emperor. Was it really appropriate for him to give them out casually? Moreover, he was so generous. Did he really have no place to spend his money? Not to mention others. Li Hongming and the other brothers looked at Li Hongyuan strangely. When these brothers got married, he just gave some gifts as a token of appreciation. Now he was so generous. What did he want to do? However, before they could continue, there was a noise outside the gate. It turned out that the bride was back. On a day like today, even the noble princes had to retreat and make way for the bride. Sun Yijia got out of the sedan chair and was stuffed with a piece of red silk. The other end of the red silk was naturally in Luo Jingwa's hand. Fortunately, the auspicious time was just right. Luo Jingwa held Sun Yijia's hand and walked into the wedding hall. These nobles who were willing to stay to watch the ceremony naturally quickly added chairs for them. Today, there was no place for them to sit on the main seat. As for those who were unwilling to watch the ceremony, there were naturally servants to lead them to other places. Li Hongyuan stayed. Although this person was still considered gentle at this moment, his presence was still very strong. It made the lively and festive atmosphere drop a little. What was the meaning of watching his fiancée go through the wedding ceremony with another man? However, Li Hongyuan did not have any self-awareness at all. He supported himself with one hand on the armrest of the chair. 3 parts laziness, 3 parts leisure, 3 parts indifference. And there was also a hostility that prevented strangers from getting close. No matter how strong Li Hongyuan's presence was, at this moment, he could only be ignored. In the loud and clear voice of the master of ceremonies, the wedding ceremony officially began. There were a lot of people inside and outside the wedding hall. They gradually moved their attention away from Li Hongyuan and gradually laughed. They watched the lively scene and cheered from time to time. Li Hongyuan's gaze landed on Jingwan. That's right, it was because she was here that he had to endure this noisy atmosphere. The ceremony is done. Send them to the bridal chamber. Then, the newlyweds were escorted in the direction of the bridal chamber. Jingwan followed, but Li Hongyuan was still sitting in the same place. It seemed that he had no intention of leaving. Luo Peishan came forward, but before he could get close, Li Hongyuan waved his hand and sent him away. Well, even if this person was a guest in someone else's residence, he did not have the slightest self-awareness. You still had to follow his instructions. Soon, in the wedding hall, there were only Li Hongyuan sitting and Eunuch Mu, who had been pretending to be a wooden stake behind her all the time. The closest person to them was the maid standing outside the door. Where is Li Hongming? He went to the garden. The 4th young lady of the Luo family also went to the garden. Li Hongyuan sneered. He knew that Li Hongming would not let go of this opportunity. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653036. HTML. Click here to report an error. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version, reading URL, mbicken.com. Chapter 117. No need for formalities. Li Hongming said gently, "Thank you, Your Highness." Luo Jingying stood up straight and slightly raised her head. She quickly swept a glance over Li Hongming, as if she didn't dare to look at him again. Her sickly face quickly turned red. Li Hongming looked at Luo Jingying. Compared to the Luo third miss, the only thing that was better was her face. Unfortunately, that girl wasn't the same as the average person. If possible, he wanted to directly make a move on Jingwan. Unfortunately, that girl didn't look like someone who would be easily tempted. This was just a pastime. It was just a chess piece to prevent the Luo family from completely switching sides to another faction. After all, it was still unknown who the Luo third miss would end up in. Therefore, it was very important to keep this chess piece in his hands. Compared to last time, Miss seems to have lost a lot of weight. Are you feeling unwell? His voice was very gentle and carried a trace of tenderness. It wasn't very obvious, but it was enough for Luo Jingying to feel. Luo Jingying's face turned even redder. She only felt that Prince Rui was really gentle. He should have a good impression of her. Thank you, Your Highness, for your concern. This subject's daughter just caught a cold. It's just that I haven't fully recovered and my appetite isn't very good. That's why I'm like this. Right now, I'm feeling much better. I believe that I'll get better soon. That's good. This prince also. Li Hongming suddenly stopped talking. Li Hongyuan was puzzled and looked up at him. Li Hongming's hand stopped in midair. Luo Jingying felt that his movements were a bit stiff. Then, she saw him clench his hand into a fist and put to his mouth, lightly coughing. At that moment, Luo Jingying's heart began to beat rapidly. Just now, did Prince Rui want to touch my face? That's right, that must be it. He really does like me. In Luo Jingying's opinion, Prince Rui was a modest gentleman. Under normal circumstances, how could he do something so impolite to a lady? The only explanation was that she couldn't control herself. Your Highness. This discovery seemed to have given Luo Jingying unlimited courage. She no longer lowered her head and just stared straight at Li Hongming. The adoration in her eyes was not restrained at all. Li Hongming looked back at her. The gentle smile on his face slowly faded, and he slowly put down his hand. Luo Jingying saw his change, and her heart began to panic. The blood on her face quickly faded. Your Highness, this subject's daughter. She didn't know how to explain. She was afraid that he would hate her. She didn't know what to do, as tears quickly condensed in her eyes. Li Hongming reached out to take her hand and led her to the back of the rockery. Unless they walked in, they would never be able to see them. Li Hongming held her hand and didn't let go. His other hand gently wiped the corners of her eyes. Don't cry. This prince's heart will ache. Your Highness. She thought she had fallen into the abyss, but in the blink of an eye, she was lifted to the clouds. Her hand was being held. She gently tried to pull it back, but naturally she didn't pull it back. Your Highness, please let go of this subject's daughter. Sorry, this prince was rude. But Li Hongming gently rubbed her hand. He picked it up and put her fingertips to his lips, gently touching them. This prince isn't willing to let go. No matter what, Luo Jingying was just a little girl with no experience in this field. How could she compare to Li Hongming, a veteran in this field? When he was gentle, it was enough to make people drown. Does Ing are not like this prince? Li Hongming pulled her into his arms. Luo Jingying subconsciously reached out to push against his chest. Li Hongming didn't use any force. Last time, when we hurriedly met on the street, this prince couldn't forget Ing Er. This prince originally thought that Ing Er also had feelings for this prince. But was it just this prince's unrequited love? If that's the case, Ing Er can push this prince away. That's not it. Luo Jingying quickly denied it. When she met Li Hongming's gaze, she suddenly took the initiative. She reached out to hug Li Hongming's waist and leaned her head on his chest. This subject's daughter's heart is filled with thoughts of your highness. I don't eat or drink. I can't sleep at night. How many times I wish I could go find you. It turns out that Ing Er and this prince are the same. The girl you like also has this prince in her heart. That's great. Li Hongming held her waist with one hand and stroked her hair with the other. However, even though he said the most gentle words of love with a smile on his face, there was no emotion in his eyes. It was as if the person in his arms wasn't a person, but a toy for him to play with. It was only because this toy was still useful that he kept it for the time being. Luo Jingying's heart was as sweet as honey, but she still couldn't stop her tears. Li Hongming naturally felt it. He was a dignified prince. How would he look if his clothes got dirty when he was out as a guest? His eyes flashed coldly. He helped Luo Jingying up, held her chin, and wiped away her tears again. Why are you crying? This subject's daughter is just too happy. If you're happy, then smile happily. This prince doesn't want to see your tears. Do you understand? As he spoke, he naturally bent down and kissed away the tears on the other side of her face. At that moment, Luo Jingying only felt her mind go blank. She couldn't feel anything other than the touch on her face. Li Hongming kissed her gently, following the bridge of her nose and finally landing on her lips. Li Hongming felt her body trembling slightly due to nervousness and shyness. She even subconsciously closed her eyes. However, she didn't push him away. She didn't even struggle. The coldness in his eyes deepened. She was indeed a slut. Luo Jingying was kissed by Li Hongming, and her waist was also caressed and kneaded by him. This was the first time she had experienced something like this, so she was naturally very sensitive. Her body quickly went limp, and the hand holding Li Hongming's waist felt weak. Li Hongming let go of her. Her eyes were blurred, and she was dizzy. She probably didn't know anything at this moment. While he mocked her in his heart, he couldn't help but feel complacent. Perhaps in his opinion, no woman could escape from the palm of his hand. Li Hongming gently scratched the tip of her nose. Silly girl. Luo Jingying gradually came back to her senses. When she heard his words, her face flushed red again. However, she didn't lower her head to avoid him. Instead, she looked at him with adoration. Your Highness. Her voice was slightly hoarse. Li Hongming didn't spend too much energy on women, but that didn't mean he didn't like women. Luo Jingying wasn't good in other aspects, but her face was still very attractive. Li Hongming smiled. Since she delivered herself to his doorstep, it would be a waste not to eat it. Do you like it? Your Highness, tell me, do you like it? Li Hongming asked again. Luo Jingying could see Li Hongming's persistence. Perhaps all men were like this. Yes, I like it. It was almost inaudible. Do you still want it? Li Hongyuan asked with interest. Because Luo Jingying was shy, her gaze became somewhat evasive. Li Hongming pinched her chin slightly. Tell me, do you want it? Yes, Li Hongming didn't hesitate to crush her. Compared to before, he used a lot more strength and rudeness. Luo Jingying was trapped and couldn't extricate herself. Luo Jingying didn't wake up until she heard laughter from not far away. She subconsciously wanted to break free. Li Hongming was currently in high spirits, so how could he allow that? He just led Luo Jingying to the bottom of the rockery and whispered in her ear. Don't worry, they can't see. Jinger, just don't make a sound. He even maliciously pinched her body. Luo Jingying hurriedly covered her mouth and glared at Li Hongming with misty eyes. To Li Hongming, this was a temptation. He didn't hesitate to continue. Luo Jingying was very scared. She knew very well that if she was discovered, she wouldn't be able to get away with it. However, she couldn't help but feel a little excited. She even felt that it would be better if she was discovered. Then she could legitimately become Prince Rui's woman. The voice gradually faded away. It should be a servant girl passing by the garden. Luo Jingying was half taken off by Li Hongming. Her outer clothes were hanging on her arm, leaving only her undergarment. On the other hand, Li Hongming's clothes were not messy at all. Fortunately, he still had some scruples and wouldn't go too far in the Luo family. Therefore, he didn't completely make Luo Jingying his woman. However, even so, Luo Jingying had tasted the sweetness of it. It wouldn't take long to scold Luo Jingying and wipe her clean. However, Li Hongming's mood wasn't very good. He was only satisfied with his mouth, but his body was burning. However, even if there were guards keeping watch, he didn't dare to let go. An accident could happen at any time. If he was discovered, it wouldn't be good for him at all. Therefore, Luo Jingying's appearance was almost done. He hugged her soft body and helped her put on her clothes. The traces on her body were completely covered. Other than her slightly messy hair and a little sweat, nothing else could be seen. However, in Luo Jingying's state, if anyone saw her for a short period of time, anyone with a discerning eye would be able to tell what had happened at a glance. Li Hongming let her lean on his body. However, during this process, he didn't feel very good. However, Li Hongming's self-control was amazing. When it was necessary, he was like this even for his own desires. When Luo Jingying was almost completely recovered, he took out a white mutton fat jade pendant half the size of a palm and put it in Luo Jingying's hand. This is what this prince always carries with me. The original knot was broken, and I didn't have time to match it with another one. Now, this prince will give it to Ying. Luo Jingying held this expensive jade pendant. Was this the token of love given to her by the prince? Her heart, which was originally a little uneasy, completely calmed down. Ying will match it with the most beautiful knot and hide it close to my body. Okay. This thing was indeed for Luo Jingying's heart and was indeed a treasure. However, it wasn't something that Li Hongming often carried. From its appearance, it didn't have any special features. Even if this thing was brought to his door, if something unexpected happened, Li Hongming could completely deny it, and no one would be able to catch him. Ying, will you be able to go out in a few days? This prince will take you to the imperial plantation to play, okay? Luo Jingying thought about her current situation. If she wanted to go out, she would need her grandmother's permission. Naturally, she had to be obedient. In her grandmother's eyes, the most obedient thing she could do was to not provoke that slut Luo Jingwan. Well, in order to be able to go out, she decided that she wouldn't appear in front of that slut for a period of time. It just so happened that this time, her mother was also very angry. Since she came out of the small Buddha hall until now, her mother hadn't said a word to her. It would be a lie if she said that she wasn't upset, besides paying her respects. So what if she didn't take half a step out of the third branch's courtyard? It would be good to coax her mother. Your Highness, Ying can't be sure about this. Because my body hasn't fully recovered, my mother and the others don't allow me to go out, so it doesn't matter. When Ying can go out, just send someone to inform this prince. After all, Ying's health is the most important thing. These words of coaxing came out of his mouth. At this moment, Luo Jingying felt that she was the happiest woman in the world. Her choice was indeed correct. When she entered Prince Rui's residence, when she gave birth to this man's eldest son, the entire Luo family, including those two old farts, would be at her mercy. She wanted to see how arrogant Luo Jingwan would be at that time. Luo Jingying smiled unusually happily. By the way, why didn't Ying go to the bridal chamber to join in the fun? Luo Jingying's face turned pale. She pulled up the corners of her mouth and smiled reluctantly. Third sister doesn't like me. Third brother is her biological brother. He certainly doesn't welcome me. I don't want to be disliked by them. Mrs. Lu had told her that even if she hated someone, she shouldn't make up bad things about that person in front of others. Instead, she should let others feel that she was good. Only when she was the best, others would naturally think that the person who didn't get along with her was the one who was at fault. Compared with simple slander, the effect would be countless times better. Our Ying is such a good girl. How could anyone not like her? I think there must be some misunderstanding between you two sisters. It will be fine if there is a chance to solve it. Don't be sad. Li Hongming wasn't very clear about the conflict between Luo Jingying and Jingwan, but he knew a little about it. He didn't know the specific reason, and there was no need for him to know such a trivial matter. Yes, Ying will. Then Ying will go back to her courtyard to freshen up, and then go to the bridal chamber to take a look. Ying will listen to Wang Ye. Luo Jingying reluctantly left. She really looked back 3 times with every step. Li Hongming had been watching her tenderly. When Luo Jingying completely disappeared, The expression on his face completely disappeared. However, the desire in his body hadn't completely subsided. He didn't leave for the time being. Without Luo Jingying by his side, he could stand here for as long as he wanted. It didn't matter who saw him. When Luo Jingying's maid who was left outside saw Luo Jingying finally appear, her anxious heart finally calmed down. She came to serve her after coming out of the small Buddha hall. She was originally a second rank made by Mrs. Lu's side. She naturally knew Luo Jingying's temper very well. She didn't know when she would make trouble again. How could she not be worried when she went to the garden alone for more than a quarter of an hour? If something happened, they would be the unlucky ones. Although she didn't know what Luo Jingying did, she knew very well that the girl went to the garden when she heard that Prince Rui was in it. Before that, she had been a little absent-minded and restless. She was not completely ignorant of the affairs of the world. Originally, Mrs. Lu was going to be a tongfang for Luo Rongping. However, with the appearance of concubine Huan, this matter was dismissed. She didn't experience the matters between men and women, but she knew. When she saw Luo Jingying's appearance, her heart thumped. She carefully looked at the way Luo Jingying walked. Nothing irreversible had happened. Let's go back. Yes. The maid was simply looking forward to it. She didn't know whether Luo Jingying was guilty or not. Along the way, she tried to avoid people as much as possible. Her lower body was sticky and uncomfortable, so she directly asked someone to prepare water for her bath. At this time, who would want to take a bath for no reason? Luo Jingying's etiquette instructor was also old and shrewd. When she thought of Luo Jingying's appearance, she had some guesses in her heart. Without saying anything, she directly called the maid over. The maid knew that the etiquette instructor was very powerful, so she didn't dare to hide anything and told her everything. After listening, the etiquette instructor narrowed her eyes and didn't say anything. In fact, she was the fourth person in the 3 branches who knew about Luo Rongping's plan. Mrs. Lu trusted her very much, so she didn't hide anything from her. This etiquette instructor was actually one of Mrs. Lu's people. She was also wholeheartedly thinking about the glory of the Lu family. If it could be exchanged for the Lu family's revival, she would not hesitate to do it. After the water was carried into Luo Jingying's room, the etiquette instructor went in and sent all the maids out. At this time, Luo Jingying didn't notice the marks on her body. What's the matter, instructor? This servant will help Miss to take a bath. Although Luo Jingying felt strange, she didn't refuse. When she took off Luo Jingying's clothes and saw the marks on her body, she thought of Luo Jingying's attitude. There was intimacy, but she didn't lose her virginity. She put her hand on Luo Jingying's shoulder. She didn't rub it, but gently touched it. This man. When Luo Jingying first heard this, she was startled. But after listening to the etiquette instructor's unhurried explanation, she said, "Miss, you might as well close your eyes and pretend that the hand on your body is Prince Rui's." Luo Jingying obediently did as she was told. Her ears were filled with all kinds of shameful descriptions, and her mind was filled with all kinds of fantasies. With the 2 hands on her body, Luo Jingying gradually couldn't bear it. "Miss, you don't need to bite your lips. You can make a sound." The etiquette instructor explained to her in detail how to make the most pleasant sound. To put it bluntly, this etiquette instructor was nothing more than teaching Luo Jingying how to serve men. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653-038. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 118. Regardless of what was going on at Luo Jingying's side, the bridal chamber was bustling with noise and excitement. Sun Yijia's veil had been removed and she was being teased by a group of people. However, because Madame Luo was there, even if they saw the injuries on Sun Ijia's face, they would only mutter a few words in their hearts. They did not dare to say anything. After all, they did not have the confidence of the people from Duke Ding's mansion and the Sun family. If their mouths were cheap and offended Madame Luo, it would definitely not be a wise thing to do. As a newly married woman, she only needed to lower her head and express her shyness. She did not need to pay attention to what others said. If she just ignored their words, it would not be difficult to endure. Luo Jinghua had been dragged out, and the people who were making trouble for Sun Ijia gradually lost interest. When the crowd dispersed, Sun Ijia still let out a slight sigh of relief. She touched her face with her hand. She was still a little sad. When she was in Duke Ding's mansion, no matter how unpleasant other people's words were, she would not frown. However, she cared about other people's words because of her. Luo Jinghua was the man she liked, the man who had already become her husband. The people around Sun Ijia also knew that she was heartbroken. When they saw her actions, they did not say anything. They were afraid that the more they said, the more upset she would feel. Today was a big day. They could not do anything that they should not do. Sister-in-law. A soft call pulled Sun Ijia back to reality. Sun Ijia looked at Jingwan, who had a warm smile on her face. She could not help but smile. Little Sister Wan. After becoming Jingwan's sister-in-law, this form of address seemed to be more intimate. Early on, when Sun Ijia and Luo Jinghua confirmed their marriage, Jingwan had already teased her more than once. Naturally, she would not say those things again. In addition, Sun Ijia's skin had become thicker. Jingwan moved a small stool and sat next to Sun Ijia. She looked at Sun Ijia and suddenly sighed. What's wrong? Sun Ijia was a little confused by her. Jingwan shook her head. I just feel that fate is a wonderful thing. Sun Ijia couldn't agree more. She always felt that her life of more than 10 years was not as exciting as the days after she met Jingwan. It was full of ups and downs, but the final ending was so unexpected. At the same time, it was also a wonderful thing that she didn't even dare to imagine. It turns out that Sister Wan is my benefactor. She always felt that if it weren't for Jingwan, she wouldn't be where she was today. You must be. Jingwan agreed shamelessly. Third young lady, please have some tea. A soft and sweet voice suddenly sounded from the side. Jingwan tilted her head. She was a very beautiful maid. Her eyes, in particular, were filled with innate affection, as if they could seduce people. She had never seen her before. She wasn't the person who came with the dowry yesterday. She was one of the 4 head maidservants who left with the bridal sedan today. She glanced again. Sure enough, there was another unfamiliar face. In that instant, Jingwan understood why 2 of Sun Ijia's 4 head maidservants were replaced. Duchess Ding had really put in a lot of effort to prepare 2 beautiful bedwarmers for her elder brother. Instead of letting other vixens seduce them, it was better to prepare them herself. With the indenture contracts in hand, they wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. Sometimes, Jingwan felt that this kind of thinking was really strange. In her opinion, there was no need to persuade a fickle man to stay. Giving the people around her to him was more disgusting than him finding other women outside. Put it down. I'm not thirsty. Jingwan said indifferently. Then third young lady, do you want some snacks? No need. You can leave. If there's anything I need, I'll tell you myself. After all, she was Sun Ijia's head maidservant in name. If she flared up at this moment, it would only make Sun Ijia lose face. Jingwan knew very well what this person was thinking. It was nothing more than thinking that she would become her sister-in-law. There would only be benefits and no harm if she curried favor with her at this moment. However, wasn't this person too stupid? She didn't understand anything about the situation, but she rushed to curry favor? However, when Duchess Ding selected people, she probably chose them according to the standards of a vase. She didn't need them to have any tricks up their sleeves. Go outside and wait. I'll call you if I need you, Sun Ijia said faintly. When only Sun Ijia and Jingwan were left in the room, Sun Ijia smiled faintly and said, I didn't discipline them well. I let Sister Wan see a joke. Jingwan didn't say anything, but she already had a plan in her heart. After that, Jingwan accompanied son Ijia and chatted about everything. There was a banquet outside, and a small table was sent in from the bridal chamber. Jingwan didn't say anything. She directly pulled son Ijia up, and the two of them ate together. Son Ijia wanted to refuse. Even son Ijia's wet nurse, nanny, and maidservant felt that it was against the rules. A newly married woman had to be aware that she would be hungry for a day. Moreover, from the moment she sat on the bed until the groom came back and drank the wedding wine, she couldn't get out of bed during this period. However, Nanny Gong didn't seem to be surprised. After Jingwan sat down, she put food in Jingwan's bowl. Jingwan usually ate by herself in her own courtyard. Now, her behavior was just to show her attitude. Sister-in-law, you haven't eaten breakfast yet. Aren't you hungry yet? It's still early for my third brother to come back. Hurry up and eat. She moved closer. Rules are dead, but people are flexible. My third brother asked me to prepare this. He doesn't even mind. Besides, we're all family. If outsiders don't know, who will say anything? Jingwan's words made everyone who wanted to say something shut their mouths. Sunny Jia was very pleased with Luo Jinghua's thoughtfulness and Jingwan's understanding. Speaking of this banquet, it was a true banquet that lasted for several hours. If someone deliberately forced the groom to drink, almost everyone would collapse. Jingwan felt that it was very unlikely that her third brother wouldn't collapse today. Sure enough, Luo Jinghua collapsed in the middle of the banquet. However, Luo Jinghua still had some consciousness. He didn't ask the servants to help him back to the bridal chamber. Instead, he went next door. It had to be said that this action made son Ijia feel a little sad. Jingwan understood her brother's intention. Third brother probably doesn't want sister-in-law to tire herself out today. Moreover, if he vomits, it will make the bridal chamber look bad. It's still early. Let him wait for a while to sober up. After comforting son Ijia, Jingwan felt that it was not suitable for her to stay any longer since her third brother had come back. Jingwan had just left when the servant girl who served Jingwan tea and snacks was now standing in front of the door of Luo Jinghua's room with a bowl of hangover soup. However, she was blocked by Luo Jinghua's servant girl. One questioned and wanted to enter, while the other firmly refused to let her in. Sun Ijia's wet nurse was so angry that her face turned ashen. The first night hadn't even passed yet, and she was already thinking of causing trouble. Just because Duchess Ding's wife said to take good care of young miss and young master, she used a chicken feather as a command arrow. However, it was not good to do anything today. Logically speaking, Jingwan shouldn't interfere. Unfortunately, she didn't care about sand in her eyes. In the past, it was not good for her to interfere in such trivial matters. But now, she even wanted to interfere in her brother's courtyard. She directly walked forward and said, "Give it to me." Luo Jinghua's servant girl hurriedly bowed and pushed the door open. Then she stepped aside. However, the servant girl was still hesitating. "Third young miss, this is a small matter. Give it to me." Jingwan's face turned cold and her voice became stern. The servant girl was shocked and quickly let go. Jingwan went in and saw Luo Jinghua lying on the bed lifelessly. She could smell the unpleasant smell of alcohol from afar. She could imagine how much he had been forced to drink. Jingwan approached him. Third brother, wake up," Luo Jinghua heard a woman's voice in a daze. His first reaction was to think of his younger sister's teaching. "Get lost," he subconsciously blurted out and kicked at her. Jingwan didn't get too close, so she didn't get kicked. She smiled. Her third brother wasn't like this before, which meant that her teaching was very successful. "Third brother, it's me. Wake up." Jingwan persistently woke Luo Jinghua up. Luo Jinghua raised his head and stared at her for a moment before he saw who it was. "Little sister." "Yes, it's me." She went forward and helped him up. "Drink the hangover soup." Luo Jinghua took Jingwan's hand and gulped down the glass of wine. "Little sister, your sister-in-law. Don't worry. I've told her." Thank you for your hard work. It's nothing. Hurry and sleep. N. Luo Jinghua fell back. Jingwan went out and handed the empty bowl to the servant girl. Guard the door. No one is allowed to enter. Then she said to the people of Sun Ijia, if it's late and third brother hasn't come out, I'll have to trouble Mama to wake him up and send him back to the bridal chamber to sleep. Third young lady is too polite. Serving young master and young mistress is this servant's duty. Jingwan's action was to express her position and attitude. There was nothing for her to do here. Jingwan didn't intend to join in the fun and directly returned to the Haitang elegant residence. However, just as she entered the courtyard, she found that something was wrong. Her wet nurse was anxiously waiting at the door. Wet nurse, what's wrong? Jingwan asked, puzzled. Young lady, Jin Qinwang has been here for a while. It seems that he doesn't intend to leave for a while. He also didn't let this servant and the others go find you. Jingwan lightly frowned. How could this great Buddha come to her place? I'll go take a look. Li Hongyuan stood in front of Atwei Zi. His eyes were malicious, as if he was looking at a great enemy. He wanted to tear that peony into thousands of pieces before he would stop. Jingwan's feet paused for a moment before she walked forward. Greetings to Wangya. Li Hongyuan turned his head to look at her. Her upright posture, slightly bowed head. That smooth and white neck was so clearly reflected in his eyes. That scar was especially irksome. However, when he thought of the initial trace of that scar, Li Hongyuan's eyes couldn't help but darken and his throat moved. Dispense with the formalities. Jingwan stood up straight. Don't know why Wangya has come to visit? Her voice was a bit cold. There were so many guests in the residence today. If she was seen by others, she probably wouldn't be able to wash herself clean even if she jumped into that river. Being disdained by Wan once again, Li Hongyuan really wanted to properly teach her a lesson. I don't see a single Haidang in your courtyard. Why is it called Haidang Elegant Residence? Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653039. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bikuga mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 119. Li Hongyuan did not answer the question. Even if Jingwan was displeased, she felt even more helpless. Aside from his noble status, his temper was also difficult to deal with, replying to Wangya. When I was in Qianfu, Chenu's courtyard was planted with many begonias and was named Begonia Elegant Residence. This courtyard is just borrowing that name. You like begonias? Li Hongyuan continued to ask. He naturally knew the origin of the courtyard's name. It was a pity that there was no painting master among his shadow guards and could not paint the beautiful scene of the blooming begonias. There was also the innocent and cute appearance of the little Wan standing under the tree, smiling and reaching out to catch the petals. And I like it very much. In Ben Wang's opinion, as long as it's a flower, Miss Luo should like it. Clearly feeling that Li Hongyuan's mood had calmed down, Jingwan's heart was somewhat surprised. She did not show it on her face and smiled. Wangya is not wrong to say so. What kind of flower do you want? You can tell Ben Wang. Ben Wang will send someone to find it for you. Jingwan's first reaction was that Jin Qinwang was suffering from lovesickness again. Otherwise, why would he do such a thing for no reason? Thanking Wangya for his kindness. As the saying goes, one should not receive a reward without merit. Furthermore, there is a difference between men and women. You always speak so directly. Don't you know that it's easy to offend people? What's more, it's Ben Wang. You have to know, in the entire capital, no one can refuse Ben Wang. Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan expressionlessly. There was no way to know his mood. Wangya, don't you know that your words are very ambiguous? Moreover, according to your temper, if someone really provoked you, shouldn't you directly flare up? Would you say these things to a little girl like her? After interacting with Jin Qinhuang a few times, Jingwan always felt that he seemed to be much better than the rumors. What happened to being malicious, ruthless, and temperamental? Perhaps it was because he gave Jingwan a different feeling that Jingwan was the same in front of him as she was in front of other people. Li Honyuan suddenly smiled. Jingwan couldn't help but glance at the peony beside him. If this flower was replaced by an ink peony, it would really be indescribable. It was mysterious, noble, elegant, beautiful, and charming. This wasn't the first time he felt this way, but perhaps because he was standing next to Peony, this feeling was especially obvious. Li Honyuan naturally noticed the change in Jingwan's expression. "What's wrong? Your Highness just said that this subject's daughter is too straightforward and unlikable. So, I don't want to talk about it now." "Heh, now you're taking this prince seriously. Speak, this prince won't get angry." Jingwan was a little conflicted. Generally speaking, men didn't like being compared to flowers. This time, Li Honyuan was even more curious about what Jingwan was thinking. "Hurry up and say it. If you can't say anything, this prince will have to stay in your courtyard for a while longer." With such a threat, Jingwan couldn't help but grind her teeth. "Actually, it's nothing. This subject's daughter just feels that when your Highness smiles, it's like an ink peony blooming." Li Honyuan raised his eyebrows with interest. This saying was really unique. "What do you mean?" Jingwan lightly spat out a few words, neither fast nor slow. Li Honyuan gave a low chuckle. For a person who was crazy about flowers, to be compared to the king of flowers should be a very honorable thing, right? Li Honyuan was greatly pleased by Jingwan. Naturally, his heart was also fiercely tickled by Jingwan. It was itchy, uncomfortable, and numb. However, Jingwan's words greatly shocked the person serving her. Was this something a woman in the boudoir should say to a man? Mama Gong didn't show it on her face, but she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. "Good girl, are you dissatisfied that this hungry wolf that is eyeing you covetously isn't restless enough? The tiger's den and the wolf's den are incomparably dangerous. Don't jump into it yourself." Li Honyuan took a few steps closer to Jingwan and reached out his hand. Jingwan subconsciously took a step back. Li Hongyuan's hand moved again and placed it on top of her head, gently stroking it. "Your words are a bit more straightforward, your personality is a bit more stubborn, and your bones are a bit more arrogant. However, it doesn't matter. You don't need to change anything for anyone. This is very good. This prince will always protect you. In the future, don't say similar things to other men, no matter what kind of flower they are." Li Honyuan withdrew his hand and stared at her for a moment. Then he brushed past Jingwan and left. Jingwan turned around and looked at that upright figure. This man, why did he come to her place? Jingwan clearly felt the gentleness in his eyes and the doting and protective care under his actions. It was strange and inexplicable. Did he really think of her as that cinnabar in his heart, that white moonlight? But this attitude wasn't right. If he really thought of her as a substitute for someone, then according to his obsession and inability to obtain that person, when he met someone similar, he should directly take it by force. He had that power and that ability, although this might make her hate him. But from his point of view, this was reasonable and reasonable. Jingwan always felt that something was out of control, and it was related to her. Perhaps it was related to Jin Qinhuang. But she didn't know the slightest bit and was completely deceived. This feeling wasn't good. However, the other party was a prince, a Qinhuang. Even if he had no power or influence, there wasn't a single courtier that could shake him. Not to mention her, a small girl from the inner compound. The disparity was too big. She could only passively move forward with her eyes covered, unable to resist or struggle. Jingwan couldn't help but frown. Gong Mama looked at Jingwan and knew that she was already suspicious, but because she didn't know the source, she was afraid that she couldn't understand. She sighed again in her heart. The girl was extremely intelligent, and her ability was not weak. However, she was a girl and lived in the inner compound. She had no power or influence and needed to rely on the family to survive. Against such a sinful person, because she was in the light and he was in the dark, naturally, she had no chance of winning. At this time, the wet nurse would take care of beating the maidservants. Gong Mama walked to Jingwan's side and gently stroked her back. Girl, don't think so much. These days, how should be, you have to take one step at a time. Jingwan looked at Gong Mama. Gong Mama's words seemed to have a deeper meaning? Or was it purely to appease her? Mama, I'm fine. It was said that Jingwan was an open-minded person. If she really couldn't figure out something, she wouldn't keep holding on to it. Not long after, she put the matter aside. When the car reaches the mountain, there will be a way. Even if it was a dead end, it was also her fate. At that time, she would always make the most beneficial choice. However, this matter still planted a seed in her heart. As for the bridal chamber, whether Luo Jingbua, a virgin, would make a fool of himself on his first night was their own business. At night, Jingwan didn't forget to sleep so soundly. She always had a hazy dream. She seemed to be very intimate with someone, but it didn't seem like that. When she woke up in the morning, she completely forgot about it. However, it was strange that Yuan Xiaoqiao didn't come to see her last night. As far as she knew, Yuan Xiaoqiao didn't go back to the Yuan family last night. She didn't know that Yuan Xiaoqiao had already escaped from the gates of hell because she slept in her bed and took advantage of her. Even if Yuan Xiaoqiao came again, Nanny Gong would think of a way to stop her. Today, the bridal chamber's tea ceremony was the highlight. However, the Luo family was a big family. Naturally, the bride didn't need to get up early in the morning to make breakfast. Sun Yijia's work and rest had always been quite regular. Even if she was married and became a wife for the first time, it didn't change anything. Moreover, her newlywed husband was considerate of her last night and didn't go overboard. She had a good rest afterwards. Now that she woke up, there was basically no discomfort. Although she was a little startled when she woke up because there was suddenly another person beside her, she soon felt an unprecedented stability and indescribable sweetness. Sun Yijia looked at Luo Jingbua for a moment, who hadn't woken up yet and was about to get up quietly. However, as soon as she moved, Luo Jingbua also woke up. Jingbua, did I wake you up? Luo Jingbua paused and realized his situation. At first, he was a little embarrassed. However, should it be said that men were born to be self-taught in this aspect? In just a short moment, he naturally reached out his hands, hugged Sun Yijia, and kissed her. His hands were also not very well behaved. He was not as innocent as he was when Sun Yijia touched him in Great Elder Princess's mansion. After all, this woman was thin-skinned. She couldn't help exclaiming when she saw Luo Jingbua's sudden action. Young master and young madam, are you awake? The nanny's voice came from outside. Sun Yijia grabbed his hands in a flurry and blushed. Jingbua, Jingbua, we still have to serve tea. Luo Jingbua hugged her for a while. Get up. He held Sun Yijia's hands that reached out to dress him. I'll do it myself. Ask the maid to come in and help you dress. As he spoke, he flipped over and got off the bed. He saw Sun Yijia sitting on the bed and looking at him without moving. For some reason, he seemed to suddenly have an epiphany. He leaned over and held Sun Yijia's face, kissing her lips again. Let's forget about today. In the future, there will be plenty of time for you to help your husband undress. Sun Yijia blushed again. Luo Jingbua stood up and picked up the clothes that had been prepared for him. Come in. The servants came in one after another with water and towels. They were divided into two groups. One group served Sun Yijia, and the other naturally tidied up Luo Jingbua's clothes. Seeing the servant girl's actions, not to mention Sun Yijia, even the person serving her had an ugly expression on her face. Luo Jingbua took a step back. I'll do it myself. I'll just serve your young madam. Young master, how can you do this kind of thing yourself? She smiled coquettishly and rolled her eyes. Even if Luo Jingbua didn't know that the Yu family prepared a private room for the son-in-law, he still remembered his younger sister's teachings. Moreover, this man was enlightened. Did he still need others to give him advice? He pulled a long face and slapped the maid's hand away. Get out. In the future, you will serve outside. You are not allowed to enter the room. That maid immediately felt wronged. Her eyes were quickly filled with tears. She looked at Luo Jinghua as if she wanted to say something. This is the first morning of this young master's wedding. Are you going to cry at a funeral? That maid hurriedly wiped away the tears that were about to fall. She turned around and ran away. Luo Jinghua put on his clothes, combed his hair, and washed his face. The whole process was very fast and didn't take much time. The two maids who were originally serving him were only there to help him. He looked at Sun Yijia again. She kept looking at him and smiling. Luo Jinghua was puzzled by her smile. What are you smiling at? Yijia, change that maid just now. She's so annoying. His little sister had said that regardless of whether he liked her or not, he had to be honest. However, his little sister seemed to have also said that everything should be discussed, and that he shouldn't be too overbearing. If you like her, then keep her. Just don't let her appear in front of me. Sun Yijia smiled and nodded. I'll listen to you. Not many women would like a maid who was specially used as a concubine for their husbands. Luo Jinghua's attitude made people very happy. Sun Yijia's wet nurse and the others were also very happy. There was nothing better than the fact that the son-in-law respected their young miss and didn't succumb to the temptations of those little vixens. Moreover, since the son-in-law had already said that he wanted to deal with this person, that chicken feather arrow was useless. Naturally, he wouldn't show any mercy when dealing with this person. However, now wasn't the time. They had to wait until after the tea ceremony. Because Sun Yijia had two mothers-in-law, the place where the tea ceremony was held was naturally in the main courtyard. Jingwan first went to the Falling Plum House to see her parents. Then, she went to the main courtyard with the other people of the second branch. However, it seemed that her grandfather wasn't resting today, but this person was at home. Could it be that Lu Chengdi specially allowed him to take a day off? Was Lu Chengdi too kind, or was it because of Sun Yijia's special status, the only former daughter-in-law who was still married? Well, no matter what the reason was, it was a good thing for Sun Yijia. When all the masters of the Luo family's backyard had arrived, Luo Jinghua and Sun Yijia appeared on time. Sun Yijia was wearing a red dress. Her hair was changed from the original girl's bun to a woman's bun. Her hair accessories and jewelry weren't very expensive. She didn't wear any of the 12 sets of expensive head ornaments. Excluding the scar on her face, she looked quite good. She was in high spirits, her face was rosy, and there was a bit of shyness in the corners of her eyes. Luo Jinghua also seemed to have shed his youth overnight and become a real man. Jingwan muttered in her heart. It seemed that she didn't make a fool of herself last night. Her third brother also knew his limits. Behind them, there were Sun Yijia's wet nurse, the nanny in charge, and 8 servant girls. Sun Yijia's original 4 head servant girls, 2 head servant girls, and Luo Jinghua's 2 head servant girls. Everyone's hands were full. There were cushions on the ground. Sun Yijia first offered tea to Luo Shangshu and old Madame Luo. She was his granddaughter-in-law. Luo Peishan naturally wouldn't say anything. He took the tea, took a sip, and directly gave her a red packet. Then, Sun Yijia naturally handed over the things that she prepared in advance. However, old Madame Luo was very happy. Because of Jingwan, she liked Sun Yijia very much. Sun Yijia couldn't find any fault with herself. It's Jinghua's blessing that you can marry him. If he dares to bully you in the future, just tell grandmother directly. Grandmother will help you deal with him. Sun Yijia was a little confused. This wasn't right. Shouldn't she remind her to get along well with her sisters-in-law, take care of her younger brothers and sisters, and help the Luo family produce more offspring? Her sisters-in-law had all done this. Old Madame Luo handed her a makeup box with a smile. Sun Yijia came back to her senses and hurriedly said a few words before handing over the gift. Then it was Sun Yijia's father-in-law and mother-in-law. Once again, she refreshed her understanding of them. Madame Zhang didn't say anything and just kept saying, "Good, good, good." Sun Ijia suddenly felt that she might have married not only a good husband, but also a good family. These 4 people didn't say anything, so the rest of the elders naturally didn't say anything either. Sun Ijia just served tea, received the red packet, and handed over the filial gifts. After repeating these actions a few times, it was done. It was unbelievably smooth, and she wasn't put in a difficult position at all. Sun Ijia knew that this wasn't because she was born into a noble family and the Luo family was all praising her. She wasn't that noble. The Luo family definitely wouldn't do this because of her status. They really accepted her and treated her well. Then, it was the people of the same generation. Little Wang Shi's expression was still not very good, but she insisted on coming out. Although little Wang Shi was born into a noble family, she wasn't a direct descendant. Her father wasn't a high-ranking official and had a generous salary. Naturally, her status was much lower than Sun Ijia's, not to mention her dowry. As the eldest sister-in-law, she was fiercely suppressed. It was definitely impossible for her to not have any feelings. However, it was also impossible for her to be so jealous of Sun Ijia. Therefore, some people didn't think that there would be a secret confrontation between the 2 sisters-in-law. First, it was the brothers. Then it was the sisters. They came one after another. Of course, she could only give away the items that were smaller than Luo Jingwa's. She didn't take them back. However, to Sun Ijia, these were really nothing. For those who had already entered school, Sun Ijia prepared the 4 treasures of the study and a paperweight. As for the smaller ones, they were some other things. However, they were all worth something. Therefore, everything she gave away was actually good stuff. Naturally, the things she prepared for the girls were also good stuff, but they weren't too excessive. It wouldn't make people think that she was stingy, nor would it make people think that she was a wastrel. Actually, when Jingwan received the box from Sun Ijia, she already sensed that Sun Ijia's things were different from other people's. Not to mention other things, just the weight of the box alone was not light. The things that her sister-in-law gave her were probably very valuable. Sun Ijia gave her a tacit smile. In fact, Luo Jingying was the most sensitive to Jingwan's matters. Moreover, she was right next to Jingwan. She really wanted to open Jingwan's box and see what was inside. However, in order to be able to go out, she couldn't do anything. If she did, she would be seen as looking for trouble. Therefore, she could only grit her teeth and bear with it. In fact, it was natural that Jingwan's things were more valuable than others. She was Luo Jingwa's biological sister. Before she married into the Luo family, the 2 of them were close friends. No matter how you looked at it, it was natural. Except for Luo Jingying, probably no one would be jealous of anything. After the tea was served to Jingwan, it was time to go and eat. Luo Peishan left with his son and grandson. The rest of the people followed Madame Luo. However, because there were still some guests in the residence, Madame Wang left first. There was also Madame Wang, so it wasn't appropriate for her to stay for long. As a bride, Sun Ijia was supposed to serve her mother-in-law. However, since Madame Wang wasn't here, Madame Zhang should serve Madame Luo, and then she should serve Madame Zhang. However, Madame Luo didn't want Madame Zhang to pretend and let them eat by themselves. As for Madame Zhang, even the concubines of the second branch didn't let them serve her, let alone her daughter-in-law. As a result, Sun Ijia didn't even put on an act this morning. She thought about her sisters-in-law. When they got married, they served her mother food and tea. After breakfast, they even listened to her mother's various teachings. She also knew that there were only a few noble families that didn't do this. The Luo family was a scholarly family for 200 or 300 years. Didn't they know these rules? Obviously not. In fact, in some aspects, the Luo family was more strict than the Ding family. Therefore, Sun Ijia told herself to cherish her fortune. Luo Peishan allowed his grandson 3 days leave for the sake of his wedding. What was the use of 3 days leave? As a newlywed, it was naturally to accompany his wife. On the way back to the second branch, Sun Ijia abandoned her newlywed husband and held Jingwan's hand, unwilling to let go. Jingwan was forced to be the third wheel. However, In this place, even if they were husband and wife, if they were too intimate outside, they would be gossiped about. Therefore, Jingwan was quite comfortable being the third wheel. Yesterday, Ing Shuang didn't come. I thought she would be among the girls who were sent off. Lord Chancellor's wife is sick. Jingwan immediately understood that this was a man who valued love more than friendship. Now their courtyard was close to Jingwan's. Sun Yijia wanted to drag Jingwan to their courtyard, but Jingwan was determined to refuse. However, sister-in-law, I like these two beautiful maids of yours very much. Give them to me. Sun Yijia didn't expect that Jingwan would make such a request. If they were ordinary maids, she would naturally give them to them, without hesitation. However, these two were evil and would lead Sister Wan astray. What's wrong? You don't want to give them to you? Jingwan said with a smile. No, it's just that, third young lady, we are Duchess Ding, when the master is talking. It's not up to you, as a servant, to interrupt. Besides, once you enter the Luo family, you are a member of the Luo family. As sister-in-law's dowry, her life and death are up to her. As a servant, you don't even know your own master. What's the use of keeping you? Jingwan restrained her smile and said coldly. How could Sun Yijia not understand? Sister Wan clearly knew what these two maidservants were for. She wanted to help her get rid of future troubles. As a sister-in-law, if she asked for two maidservants from her sister-in-law, people would at most say that she was spoiled and unreasonable. Other than that, you really couldn't say anything about her. Even Duke Ding's mansion didn't have anything to say. Even if everyone knew the purpose of these two maids and Jingwan shouldn't have them, how could she explain it to her clearly? Third young lady, please forgive me. Enough. Yijia, it's just two maids. Give them to third young lady. Luo Jinghua said. Perhaps he didn't know before, but his brothers all said that he had good luck with women. No matter how slow he was, he realized that it was better to give these two maids to his little sister. He didn't think that his little sister wouldn't be able to control them. Sun Yijia looked at the siblings. She seemed to understand something, so she nodded and agreed readily. It's your good fortune to serve Sister Wan. In the future, you must do your best. If you do anything wrong, you can deal with it however you want. I won't say a word. Sister Wan, I'll have someone send their indenture contracts later. She didn't care that a certain someone's eyes were red and her whole body was full of reluctance. Jingwan nodded. I won't see third brother and third sister-in-law out. She smiled a little ambiguously. Sun Yijia wanted to pinch her. Yijia, you go back first. I want to say something to my little sister. Sun Yijia left first. Jingwan also dismissed the people around her. Third brother, what do you want to say? I want to tell your sister-in-law about the fine brushwork and the lyrics of a male phoenix seeking a female phoenix. Little sister, didn't you always tell me that we should be honest with each other? I want your sister-in-law to know the real me. Even if I'm not as outstanding as she thinks I am and she'll be disappointed in me, I don't care. As Luo Jinghua spoke, he smiled. I also want her to know how good your sister-in-law is to her. She's so good to her that even I can't help being jealous. Third brother, if you think you should do this, I won't object. Thank you, little sister. Luo Jinghua was unprecedentedly solemn. Although it's very boring, there's nothing I can do for you. I can only say these two words. Jingwan wrinkled her nose and nodded seriously. I accept. Luo Jinghua smiled and rubbed her head. Jingwan's eyes suddenly flashed with the image of a certain man rubbing her head yesterday. She immediately pushed his hand away in dissatisfaction. You're not allowed to touch. Luo Jinghua looked at her cute little appearance and couldn't help but reach out his devil's claws. He quickly rubbed her head twice and turned to quickly leave. Hearing Jingwan's flustered and exasperated voice, he very proudly laughed out loud. Jingwan laughed in spite of herself. The way she was now was also very good. As for where she would go in the future, she never thought about it. However, the matter of Jin Qinhuang coming to her courtyard yesterday, no one should know. Otherwise, how could there be no news at all? Turning around, she stepped into her own small courtyard. Miss, how do you want to deal with these two people? The wet nurse asked. What are the two of you called? This servant is Hong Lien. This servant is Lu Yi. Hong Lien was the one who started to be restless yesterday. On the other hand, Lu Yi had been very silent. Even when Jingwan took the two of them from Sun Yijia, there was no fluctuation in her eyes. This was the first time Jingwan heard her speak. If Hong Lien's eyes were the most seductive, then Lu Yi's voice was the most seductive. Duchess Ding really took a lot of trouble to choose these two people. Hong Lien, go to the kitchen to help with the fire. For the rest of the time, help clean the courtyard. Third miss, if you don't want to, go to the main kitchen. Jingwan coldly said. Hong Lien shut her mouth. There were only a few small kitchens in the entire Luo family. The main kitchen was responsible for the meals of the entire Luo Fu. It was not an exaggeration to say that it needed to light the fire all day long. If she was sent there by the young lady, she would be trampled to death. Lu Yi, to tell the truth, there were more and more people in Haitang Elegant Residence. It was really not easy to arrange. Miss, when Duchess Ding was here, this servant was responsible for taking care of the flowers and trees in the garden. Jingwan narrowed her eyes. Why did you become third sister-in-law's dowry maidservant? Fifth young master said that this servant took good care of the flowers and trees and rewarded this servant with something. This servant's voice is special, so when I thanked him, someone heard it. Lu Yi indifferently explained. Lu Yi's voice, even if she spoke with a cold face, seemed to be deliberately seductive. She approached Sun Yilin. No wonder she was suppressed and schemed against. Jingwan didn't care whether her unfinished words were consistent with what she thought. Sun Yilin's praise should be true. Then there was no doubt that she took good care of the flowers and trees. Then you take care of the flowers and trees first. As for the rest, we'll talk about it later. Yes. After Luo Jinghua went back, he directly pulled Sun Yijia into the study, saying that he wanted to teach her how to draw. Seeing that they had a good relationship, the servants naturally knew what was good for them and retreated outside. Luo Jinghua stood behind Sun Yijia, holding her waist with one hand and holding her hand with the other. Yijia, did you know that the fine brushwork is actually my younger sister's? She was the one who suggested that I bring 100 birds worshipping the phoenix as a betrothal gift. She was the one who asked me to play a male phoenix courting a female phoenix. That poem was also written by my younger sister. I'm far from the rumors outside. Sun Yijia listened quietly and didn't react for a moment. Luo Jinghua's hand on her waist tightened. It was impossible to say that he didn't care about Sun Yijia's thoughts at all. He already had feelings for her. She was the person he wanted to spend his life with. Sun Yijia turned around. Jinghua, I'm very happy that you told me all this. Really. Although it's a little regretful, I believe that when you did that, you did it out of sincerity. What I really care about is you as a person. Luo Jinghua heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Then he smiled and pressed his forehead against hers. Are you very happy? Sun Yijia smiled and nodded. Then I'll tell you something that will make you even happier. Seeing her expectant gaze, Luo Jinghua couldn't help but kiss her. I promised my younger sister that I'll only have you in my life. Even if I don't have any children in the future, I'd rather adopt than touch another woman. For a lifetime, a couple. Sun Yijia subconsciously covered her mouth. Tears quickly gathered in her eyes. Hearing these words from the mouth of the person she liked, was there anything more moving in the world than this in the world? Even if there were other factors involved, if he wasn't willing not to mention his younger sister, even his biological mother couldn't do it. Don't cry. Luo Jinghua kissed her eyes. I owe my younger sister too much. In the future, let's treat her well together, okay? Sun Yijia nodded vigorously. She was willing to give her everything to Sister Wan. Her current happiness was given to her by Luo Jinghua, but the source of her happiness was Sister Wan. Didn't she owe her too? Perhaps it was because they had opened up, but the feelings between the two of them quickly warmed up. Moreover, as newlyweds, when they hugged each other, the flames couldn't help but start to rise. The servant girl guarding outside the door heard soft sounds coming from inside. It seemed to be getting louder and louder. Was that her young lady's voice? She blushed when she heard it. Sunny-ja's wet nurse noticed that something was wrong with the servant girl and quickly thought of something. It was really unexpected that her young lady would do such a thing. She walked over to guard the door. It was better for these little girls not to hear so much. However, before Luo Jingwa's bad things officially started, he was forced to stop. Grandfather summoned him. Because Luo Peishan took out the first 50 books of the meticulous painting book yesterday. Half of them had already been taken away. Today, more people came to visit, and there was even a painting master who wanted to see Luo Jingwa. Naturally, he had to show up. Sun Yijia met the people who originally served Luo Jingwa. To be honest, there weren't many of them. Those who were close to him were 2 head servant girls and a manservant. After he moved back to the inner courtyard, he had less contact with the manservant. The remaining people were all rough laborers. His wet nurse had stayed in Qi and manner from the beginning. Therefore, Sun Yijia handled it very easily. Then, she arranged for the people around her to start counting and organizing the dowry. These things naturally didn't need her to do it personally. She prepared to look for Jingwan, but then Madame Luo sent someone to invite her. She said that there were some guests in the manor and wanted her to meet them. After becoming the daughter-in-law of the Luo family, it was natural for her to meet the relatives of the Luo family. She had someone send the slave contract of Red Lotus and Lu Yi to Jingwan. The 2 of them split up and busied themselves. Jingwan was still very relaxed. She wrote, read, and arranged the flowers and plants. The Emolan plant had already borne seeds. One had to know that in her previous life, directly using orchid seeds to cultivate orchids had a very low survival rate after various treatments. Jingwan basically had 0 chance of success here. However, with the mentality of giving it a try, Jingwan used all the methods she could use to treat the seeds and carefully plant them. The final result could only be left to fate. Jingwan had just cleaned her hands, and the water droplets on her hands were not dry yet. "Miss, Madam wants you to go over." "Oh, do you know what's the matter?" Jingwan put down her handkerchief. "Madam knows that you asked third young madam for 2 people. If my mother knows, then basically everyone in the manor knows. Let's go." Anything that was disadvantageous to Jingwan was a big matter to Madame Zhang. When she saw Jingwan, she did not wait for her to greet her. "Wan, why are you so muddle-headed?" Jingwan smiled unconcernedly. "Mother, I only asked sister-in-law for 2 people." Madame Zhang tapped her forehead with a finger. "Do you not have enough servants to serve you?" "Quite a lot. But I liked those 2 people when I saw them, so I asked for them." "They are my sister-in-law. So what's the matter? Do you really like them? Forget about ordinary maids. Why did you ask for those 2? Luo Rongyan said. Jingwan was still smiling, but the warmth in her eyes subsided. "Of course I like them. What else did you think it was? Moreover, those 2 maids are just 2 people. What's so special about them?" Luo Rongyan looked into Jingwan's eyes and felt a chill in his heart. His daughter was not as close to him as she was to her grandparents and her mother. He originally thought that she was close to her grandparents because they were separated by generations, but she was close to her mother because of the nature of mother and daughter. Although he was her father, he was a man after all. After she grew up, they did not have much time to be close to each other. It was impossible for her to throw herself at him and act coquettishly when they met. Now, it seemed that this was not the only reason. Wan, do you really not know that those 2 maids are special? Then, do you want me to know or not? Luo Rongyan suddenly understood. She knew, and because she knew, she did it on purpose. Why? Because you are my father, and he is my elder brother. If he is willing, I can achieve my goal. If he is unwilling, I will not say a word. I see. I thought you didn't like them, but I didn't expect it to be to this extent. Father, let's put it another way. If you were in my mother's position and my mother was in your position, what would you do? What would I do? Luo Rongyan could not help but feel angry just by thinking about it. Mother was brought up to treat her husband as the heavens. She was raised very well. It's a pity that I wasn't raised well. Sister-in-law is my close friend, and third brother is willing. Naturally, I have to do something. Luo Rongyan looked at Jingwan. He really wanted to tell her that she was wrong. She was simply going against the norm. But when he met her cold gaze, he couldn't say a single word. If he did, the father and daughter would probably become strangers. Those two maids are really nothing special. Since you like them, you can keep them. Yes, his daughter just liked them. There was no other reason. Thank you, father. Jingwan's eyes gradually became warm. Luo Rongyan nodded. Go back early. Your grandmother might. Luo Rongyan suddenly stopped talking. His daughter grew up by his mother's side. No one knew her better than her mother. His mother probably knew what she was thinking, but she had never corrected her. What kind of attitude did his mother have? His mother and father had a good relationship. His father also doted on his daughter. Perhaps his father also knew. A few days ago, his father scolded him badly. He said that he was not a good father and did not spend any time on his daughter. At that time, he felt wronged. Now, it seemed that he was not wronged at all. Alas, he might be scolded again. Go back. I will take my leave. Madame Zhang was still in a state of confusion. She basically did not understand what her husband and daughter were talking about. Luo Rongyan looked at his wife. He treated his wife the same for many years because she was pure. She might be satisfied in her heart. However, in his daughter's view, she should be wronged. It was abnormal that she was not wronged. She was strangled by jealousy. Only when a person's 7 emotions and 6 desires were that part of them was considered complete. What are you talking about with Wan Wan? Madame Zhang asked. We are talking about the 2 maids. She just likes them. Since they are already with her, there is no need to care about them. It was said that ignorance was bliss. His daughter had always been protecting her mother in her own way and not letting her get hurt. I can't become a person like my son in this life. However, I will treat you better in the future. Although Madame Zhang did not know what her husband's treatment had to do with her son, she still could not help blushing. Luo Rongyan laughed in spite of himself. The roles of wife and daughter were reversed. He wasn't a competent father, and his wife wasn't a competent mother. It was all thanks to his mother that his daughter was able to grow up to be so outstanding. After Jingwan went back, she saw Yuan Xiao, who was full of energy. Wan Wan, what are you so excited about? I heard that cousin Jinghua played a male phoenix seeking a female phoenix yesterday. He also added lyrics. I heard several people secretly reciting the lyrics. They were all wondering why cousin Jinghua didn't play the guqin for them. In fact, I also want someone to play it for me. Yuan Xiao revealed a dreamy expression. There will be. Although Luo Jinghua's group of brothers knew in advance that he was going to play the guqin, they also thought that he wrote the lyrics after Jingwan made a request. Except for Qin Zhengmin, no one suspected that it was Jingwan. If you asked Qin Zhengmin why he suspected it, he could only say that it was a feeling. As everyone expected, Luo Jinghua's unique performance was now spread all over the streets and alleys. Many people were intoxicated by it. Many people were infatuated with Luo Jinghua, this affectionate man. Even if someone scolded him for being improper, it could not stop a pile of young girls' feelings. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653040. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will handle it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version, reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 120. However, even if Jingwan knew about it, she would probably just pat Luo Jingbu's shoulder with a smile and say, "Third brother, it's time to test you. Don't disappoint me." Regardless of what would happen to Luo Jingbu in the future, the painting master gave him a comment after chatting with him. "The younger generation will surpass us in time." Luo Jingbu hurriedly said that he was ashamed. Wasn't he ashamed? His little sister had also predicted that today's situation might occur. She had helped him think of many problems. Moreover, regarding the fine brushwork itself, she had also very carefully and comprehensively explained it to him. If he still couldn't pass the test and was seen through by others, he could probably use his death as an apology. Luo Jingbu's situation was not bad. After today's step, things would probably be smoother and smoother in the future. However, Sun Yijia's situation was not so smooth. How should she put it? Sun Yijia had been in contact with the most distinguished group of people in the Qi Yuan dynasty for more than 10 years. In the past, she had a cold personality. However, because of Jingwan, she opened her heart and gradually came into contact with more people. However, this did not mean that she could easily accept anyone. The group of people she was in contact with now was completely different from her upbringing. As soon as she came into contact with them, Sun Yijia subconsciously wrapped herself up in a cold and arrogant manner. In her eyes, she was sick of their flattery and fawning. Moreover, their behavior was vulgar and their eyes were staring at her. If they were not looking at her jewelry, they were looking at her face. In the eyes of these people, she was a disfigured woman who had married into the Luo family. Why should she pretend to be virtuous? Moreover, she was from a prestigious family. In order to gain a foothold in the Luo family, shouldn't she take the initiative to show filial piety to them? After several hints, she actually pretended not to understand. What was this? Their upbringing, ideals, and pursuits were all different. They were people from two different worlds and could not get along. Sun Yijia's face was cold. There was only one person like Sister Wan in this world. At this time, she also realized that she had made a mistake in the past, a huge mistake. Of course, she wanted to pursue an ordinary life. However, how many families with the same upbringing as her could be accepted by her? The people present were probably all ordinary people. But what happened in the end? Sun Yijia felt a chill run down her spine. She was glad that she had met Jingwan and married into the Luo family. This was an ordinary yet extraordinary family. She had everything she wanted here, but it did not conflict with her past. Jingbu's family can go back first, old Madame Luo said faintly after watching coldly from the sidelines. Sun Yijia glanced at old Madame Luo. She didn't seem to be angry with her, so she heaved a sigh of relief. Yes, granddaughter-in-law will take her leave. One of Madame Luo's maids sent Sun Yijia off. Third young mistress, you don't have to take what happened today to heart. Madame Luo's purpose is to let you know what's going on. As for them, just give them some face. Some people, if you take them too seriously, they won't take you seriously. Sun Yijia understood. Thank you for your advice, mother. The maid smiled. Third young mistress is Madame Luo's favorite, a treasure in her palm. Sister One deserves the best in the world, Sun Yijia said sincerely. However, if Jingwan were to hear her words, she would probably roll her eyes. All of them had been brainwashed. On the way back, Sun Yijia remembered that old Madame Luo used to have a noble status, not much worse than her current status. At that time, although the Luo family had a strong foundation, they didn't have a strong background. At that time, no one in the Luo family supported her. The situation she encountered was probably much more difficult than Sun Yijia's current situation, but she resolutely walked to where she was today. She wasn't assimilated. She was still noble and dignified, and she still had the wisdom that had settled down for decades. She wasn't worse than her grandmother, but she was more benevolent and humane than her grandmother. Most importantly, she was much more fortunate than her grandmother. However, at that time, old Madame Luo was only married to a scholar who came in third in the imperial examinations, while her grandmother was married to the powerful Duke Ding. None of the relatives in the Luo family dared to disrespect her. They even respected her from the bottom of their hearts. old Madame Luo taught Sunny Jia a good lesson in her own way. Not long after, Jingwan also found out about Jingwan's request. However, in the end it only caused a small ripple. Soon, peace was restored, and no one mentioned it again. As for Jingwan's father, Luo Rongyan, just as he expected, after Luo Peishan sent the guest away, he called him to the front study. He didn't scold him, but just looked at him calmly. For the first time, Luo Rongyan realized that sometimes calm was scarier than violent storms. His scalp was numb, his back was cold, and a chill ran up from the soles of his feet. Instead of a sharp sword hanging over his head, it was better to stab him with a knife. Father, whatever you brothers want to do, as long as it doesn't harm the Luo family, I won't force you to do it. You don't like officialdom. You like to be free and unrestrained. You want to be like a banished immortal. I'll let you do whatever you want. You used to spend all your time with your wife. Now, all you think about is your toys. You've never taught your children well. You've never thought about your children. Since that's the case, it's best that you don't care about them. Luo Peishan's words were not harsh, but for the first time, Luo Rongyan felt the deepest guilt. Father, Luo Peishan waved his hand. I don't want to hear what you have to say. Among the four of you brothers, you're the best in all aspects, but you don't want to be an official. Your eldest brother is only at the 4th rank of the secondary class. Even if I retire, he won't be able to climb to the 3rd rank in his lifetime. However, the current situation is special. It's not a good time for him to go further. Besides, you're just brothers. Without me, no matter how high he climbs, the honor and glory will belong to his wife and son. How good can your children get? Now, in the eyes of those people, the 3rd girl is a piece of delicious, fat meat. Everyone wants to eat her. If you, as her father, can be a little more reliable and give her something to rely on, she won't have to wait for others to make a decision. Luo Rongyan's lips moved, but he couldn't say anything. I've been working hard to keep our family in a neutral position in this fight for the throne, but it's very difficult to do. Even if Jingwa's wife doesn't marry into the family, the Luo family will be involved in the quagmire sooner or later. No matter how unimportant the position of minister is, it's still the head of a department. Now, on the surface, we're on the side of the Empress and Prince Kang. Noble Consort Su and Prince Rui won't let it go. They'll definitely think of ways to pull the 3rd girl into their hands. If something goes wrong, the 3rd girl may be destroyed by them. Those in power all have the same idea. They can't let an important chess piece fall into the hands of others. The best way is to make it disappear completely. Luo Rongyan took a breath and clenched his fists. He didn't pay attention to it and didn't expect that his daughter had been in such a dangerous situation. Father, what should we do now? Luo Peishan glanced at him as if to say, You? What can you do? At this moment, Luo Rongyan's handsome face turned red. If Mingir didn't have that accident, it wouldn't have been like this. Otherwise, if the accident happened before Great Elder Princess' birthday, the 3rd girl wouldn't have been in the limelight. In the final analysis, it's God's will. Luo Peishan sighed. Tell me, what do you think? Even if you're not an official, you're not a blockhead in this aspect. As his father, Luo Rongyan was not polite at all today. Even if he was choked, he could only endure it. After thinking for a while, he said, either we completely side with the Empress and Prince Kang, or we stand on the side of Noble Consort Su and Prince Rui. We'll continue to be neutral. What he said was equivalent to not saying anything. However, those people would not give them a 3rd choice. So what's the specific choice? Father, do you prioritize the Luo family or Wanwan? I'm asking you. Luo Peishan suddenly roared very angrily. This was the key to the problem. Whether it was the Empress or Noble Consort Su, in order to show enough sincerity and let them take the initiative, Luo Peishan could basically guess who would be chosen by marriage. From Jingwan's point of view, in the case of having no choice, it was best to choose the one who was the best for Jingwan. And this person, except for Sun Yilin, was the only one who was the best for Jingwan. However, Luo Peishan was not optimistic about Prince Kang's ascension to the throne. In the future, if other people ascended the throne, those who were on Prince Kang's side would definitely be purged. The Luo family would inevitably suffer, and Ding General Manor would probably be destroyed. Naturally, Wanwan would also suffer. Prioritizing the Luo family? Prioritizing Jingwan? Looking at the present or the future? In fact, if it were other families, this would not be a problem at all. There was no need to even think about it. Could a girl be more important than the family? However, Jingwan was different to them. They truly doted on her like she was the apple of their eye. Furthermore, Jingwan's usual cleverness made their hearts ache uncontrollably. They clearly knew that she would not be happy after marrying that person, yet they could still helplessly watch her fall into the fire pit. The angry Luo Peishan frightened Luo Rongyan. He had never seen such a father. Was his daughter so important in his heart that she could be compared with the entire Luo family? Luo Rongyan had always thought that his father was actually a qualified scholar official. At this moment, he knew that he was not. In the heart of a qualified scholar official, the family would always be the first. Everything else could be abandoned. Even the most precious thing he cared about, he would be willing to give it up without hesitation. Luo Peishan originally just kept it in the bottom of his heart as if nothing had happened. But once he spread it out, he felt powerless and tired. You can go back. I need to think about it. Your son will take his leave. Luo Rongyan walked out of the door and looked back at his father, who seemed to be in the shadows. It turned out that not only was he not a good father, but he was also not a good son. His daughter was standing at the edge of the fire pit. His father was anxiously pacing back and forth, and he could only watch with folded arms, unable to help at all. What's more, before this, he was very leisurely and did not notice at all. When Jingwan was trimming the flower branches to make a vase, she accidentally pricked her hand by a thorn. A dark red blood bead quickly appeared. Jingwan paused. She was obviously very careful. How could she prick her hand? Ah, it's bleeding. Mama, Wanwan pricked her hand. Quickly, bring the medicine. Yuan Xiao hurriedly said. It's okay. Don't make a fuss. Jingwan pressed her thumb and crushed the blood bead. The blood bead condensed again. Mama Gong, who had already been alarmed, naturally would not ignore it. This day, as usual, passed peacefully. The guests of the Luo family also left one after another. However, Yuan Xiao shamelessly insisted on staying. Her mother could not do anything about it, and Madame Luo also happily agreed to let her stay. Therefore, Yuan Xiao openly stayed at the Begonia house. Mama Gong directly asked the servants to prepare a room for her. A certain someone who originally wanted to continue squeezing into Jingwan's bed was too embarrassed to mention it. The next morning, after Jingwan got up and was about to do morning exercises, her grandmother sent someone to call her to the main courtyard. What was it that needed to be done so early? At this time, her grandfather had not gone to the morning court. Jingwan paused. Her grandfather was looking for her. Sure enough, Jingwan went to the main courtyard. Her grandfather and grandmother were sitting together waiting for her. There was no one to serve her. However, there were some bruises under her grandfather's eyes, and her grandmother's spirit was not good. They did not rest well. Jingwan greeted them. Grandfather, what is so important? She asked curiously. Girl, what do you think of Sun Yilin? Jingwan lowered her head slightly and remained silent. Wanwan, you understand what your grandfather means, right? Madame Luo said. Of course, she understood. Even Jingwan, who had not cried much when she was a baby, could not help but tear up. She hurriedly wiped her tears with a brocade handkerchief. Seeing her tears, Madame Luo instinctively wanted to comfort her. However, Luo Peishan reached out to hold her and shook his head slightly. Jingwan calmed down and said, Grandfather, you don't have to go to this extent for me. I'm fine. It seems that you understand everything. So, how can it be that you're really fine? Even if you really think it's fine, your grandmother and I will be distressed. But gambling with the Luo family and messing up your plan in exchange for a better outcome for my granddaughter is not worth it. Besides, if Uncle and the others know about it, they will hate me to death. Luo Peishan laughed. You know about your grandfather's plan? As a subject, it is very difficult to be independent in the fight for the throne. You have to be prepared. Wan, how would you know that grandfather did not choose Prince Kong in his plan? From the perspective of the Qi Yuan dynasty, Prince Rui is more suitable for that position. Judging from the current situation, Prince Rui has a better chance of winning. In front of the two of them, Jingwan did not hide anything. Prince Rui just has a better chance of winning, but he is still far from being able to settle the situation. Otherwise, there would not be so many people standing on Prince Kang's side. Therefore, putting all the chips on Prince Kong will only reduce the chance of winning temporarily. You may not lose. So, girl, you don't have to blame yourself. I made this decision after careful consideration. If Prince Kong really has no chance of winning, I'm afraid I can only give up on you. Having said that, Jingwan was still very grateful to Luo Peishan. If it were someone else, they would definitely choose the most advantageous path. But, girl, do you think that Prince Rui will win? After Meng Meng came to the capital, she read a lot of court newspapers, but she did not express any opinions. However, even so, she should be aware of the situation. Rationally, yes, but what? Luo Peishan asked curiously. I feel that Prince Rui will not be the final winner. Luo Peishan became interested. So, Wan thinks that Prince Kong will have the last laugh? Jingwan shook her head. I don't know. Feeling was a mysterious thing. Besides, Jingwan had never relied on her feelings to confirm anything. Who knew why this feeling came inexplicably this time? In that case, Wan, just say that Sun Yilin is better. Now, we still have a choice. Jingwan frowned. Grandfather, isn't it too early to make a decision now? Girl, you know that the sooner this matter is settled, the better for you. After all, she was a girl. If she was always criticized by others, her reputation would not be good. Moreover, once he was engaged, as the fiancé, he had to protect his fiancée. In this way, he could minimize the potential threat as much as possible. But if we take the initiative to choose now and passively accept it later, it's two different things. The former will make Prince Rui target our Luo family. The latter will only target Prince Kong. It was definitely not a good thing to be hated by a powerful prince. Jingwan did not want the Luo family to be in the teeth of the storm. This matter can't be settled in a day or two. My goal is to speed up this matter. Don't worry, girl. I will find a way to get myself out of it as much as possible. Jingwan was silent for a moment. My third sister-in-law is coming back today. Let her tell young master Sunday, huh? Luo Peishan did not understand what she meant. Young master Sun likes me, Jingwan said lightly. Not to mention Luo Peishan, even Madame Luo was surprised. What do you mean? He said it himself. Although it's not kind to let him take all the responsibility at this time, it's better for him to take all the risks than to let grandfather do it. After all, he is on Prince Kang's side. He has Ding General Manor and the Empress behind him, and even everyone on Prince Kang's side. Prince Rui can't do anything to him. What she owed him now, she would pay him back in the future. Well, that brat actually ran to you and said those words. Where's his gentlemanly manners? Since that's the case, let him take all the responsibility. Luo Peishan was very unhappy. Previously, he thought that his good granddaughter was taken away by that brat Qin Zhengmin. In fact, there was a wolf cub eyeing her covetously. Now, he wanted to send his good granddaughter to the wolf cub's mouth. Did he want to eat for free without doing anything? Dream on. If he didn't do it well this time, he would kill him. Li Ruyu did something stupid. In a sense, he did not wrongly accuse the third girl. However, between Sun Yilin, who might be her future husband, and him, her grandfather, his good granddaughter chose him. Regarding this, Luo Peishan felt very happy. Jingwan originally felt very guilty about using Sun Yilin, but when she saw her grandfather's matter-of-fact attitude, she was quite speechless. However, what did she say to Sun Yijia at that time? She didn't want to be involved in the quagmire of Ding General Manor. Now, she was the one who jumped in. How ironic. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/18077/66534041. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 121. Jingwan quietly came to the main courtyard and then quietly returned to the Haitang elegant residence. Except for a few related servants, no one in the Luo family knew about it. After Jingwan left, Madame Luo sighed with some worry. I hope there won't be any problems this time. Luo Peishan really wanted to tell his old wife that it was really hard to say. When the third girl was engaged to Qin Zhengmin, nothing happened. In the end, there was still such a result. Now in this situation, there might be many people hindering and scheming. It was hard to say whether the engagement would go smoothly. However, he didn't say it. He believed that his old wife actually understood the stakes, but she didn't want to think too deeply and didn't want to admit it. Luo Peishan then went to the morning court. When Jingwan went to greet her mother, she met Luo Jinghua and Sun Yijia. They said that they had just arrived, but Jingwan was afraid that they were waiting for her. Didn't they see the other children sitting at the side? Jingwan, on the other hand, did not feel that she was late. Clearly, these people were the ones who came early. She arrived at the same time every day. As for her stepsisters, they were always one step ahead of her. They would rather wait for her than wait for her. She was already used to it. If she came early one day, she could guarantee that her stepsisters would definitely come even earlier the next day. The little girl was still growing, so it was better to sleep more. Besides, if she came too early, it would affect Madame Zhang's rest. A group of people went to the main courtyard. Sun Yijia was still holding onto Jingwan's arm out of habit. They leaned against each other and spoke softly. Because Luo Jinghua was going to accompany Sun Yijia back to her parents' home today, Madame Luo didn't ask the two of them to go back early to prepare. The people from Duke Dinghua's mansion could come to pick them up at any time. If they came early and weren't ready, it wouldn't be good. However, before they left, Madame Luo talked to Sun Yijia alone. When Sun Yijia came out, her expression was normal. No one could tell anything from her face. Sun Yijia glanced at Jingwan, who seemed to be bored and playing with her handkerchief with her head down. She didn't know if she knew about this, but it was more likely that she did. Old Madame doted on her so much. She wouldn't hide such a big thing from her. Sun Yijia knew how much Jingwan disliked Ding general manner, but now she had to make such a choice. It could be seen how serious the situation was, compared to the atmosphere in the Luo family. To be honest, Sun Yijia even had the thought of never stepping into the backyard of Ding general manner again, let alone Jingwan, who was born and raised in the Luo family. Although she had only been in the Luo family for a day or two, she could already understand Sister Wan's mentality of resisting Ding general manner. Sun Yijia secretly made up her mind. She had to teach her brother a lesson. If he didn't treat Sister Wan well in the future, if he didn't protect Sister Wan well, she would definitely not let him have a good time. Luo Jinghua originally wanted to ask his grandmother what she said to his wife, but after thinking about it, he decided against it. His grandmother wouldn't say anything overboard or unpleasant. Besides, if it was really important, his wife probably wouldn't keep a secret. As expected, the person who came to pick up Sun Yijia was Sun Yilin. Sun Yijia used the time before getting on the carriage to say a few words to Sun Yilin. Luo Jinghua didn't know what his wife said to his brother-in-law, but the usually gentle young master didn't seem to be calm at this moment. The expression on his face was very colorful. At first, he was shocked and didn't dare to believe it, but later, he became excited and happy. At a glance, he knew that he encountered something good that he didn't dare to think about before. Fortunately, Sun Yilin didn't get carried away by the surprise and do something inappropriate. After all, there were so many eyes around now. If he didn't pay attention, this matter would have more twists and turns. Luo Jinghua didn't sit in a carriage with son Ijia. Instead, he rode a horse with son Yilin. However, he regretted it not long after. It was better to stay in the carriage. His brother-in-law was obviously absent-minded now. He didn't respond when he said a few words to him. At this moment, Luo Jinghua was even more curious about son Ijia's words. Perhaps he should take the time to ask? When son Ijia returned home, it was naturally very lively. Except for the family of Duke Dinghua's mansion, all the married sisters and brothers-in-law came back. Old Madam Sun also came out in high spirits. The husband and wife were separated. Luo Jinghua was pulled away by a group of men to chat. As for the women, they naturally cared about son Ijia. It didn't matter if this concern was sincere or not. However, looking at son Ijia's relaxed eyebrows and rosy face, it was difficult to speculate against one's heart that she was not good. Old Madam Sun took son Ijia's hand and said a few good words. She was really happy to see such a granddaughter. You talk to your mother privately first, and then go to my place. Old Madam Sun used to be kind on the surface, but in fact, she was cold in her heart. Now, she was more and more consistent. Few people could smile at her. She used to be the best to son Ijia and son Yilin. Now, it seemed that she was only good to these two siblings. She was indifferent to her son, daughter-in-law, and even her eldest grandson. She was impatient with them. Son Yibin was arrogant enough. After falling out with Duke Dinghua, he dared to challenge Duke Dinghua. However, in front of old Madam Sun, he was still a good grandson. No matter how many people were jealous of the injustice, they didn't dare to say a word in front of old Madam Sunday. If they annoyed her, she would teach them a lesson. Then, they couldn't expect anyone to plead for them. Duchess Dinghua could see that her daughter was very good, but she still couldn't help but ask. Son Ijia answered them one by one with a smile. She was really good. She couldn't be better than she was now. Why don't I see the two maids, Red Lotus and Lve? Ijia, mother knows that you're unhappy, but you still have to have a sense of propriety. It's far better for you to win them over than to ignore them. Mother has been through this before. Mother, Jinghua, and father are not the same kind of people. Your words of experience don't suit me. Duchess Dinghua was so angry that she wanted to slap her. All men have the same virtue. Even if he treats you well now, he'll talk about it after this period of time. Your face. Duchess Dinghua realized that she had said something wrong and quickly shut her mouth. Son Ijia's expression turned cold. Mother, I believe that Jinghua is not that kind of person. You don't have to say anything more. I've already given Red Lotus and Lve away. You, the mother and daughter pair, had a rather unpleasant quarrel. Son Yilin didn't test Luo Jinghua with the others. Instead, he went to old Madam Sun's place. Son Yilin directly knelt in front of old Madam Sunday, grandmother. You once said that if I have a girl I like, you will help me. Now I beg you to help me. Although old Madam Sun rarely went out, did she not know the situation outside? No, she knew very well that she could watch coldly from the sidelines under normal circumstances, but when necessary, she would definitely intervene in certain matters. Therefore, she was bound to be clear about the situation outside. The third young lady of the Luo family? Yes, that's a good girl. Originally, they had said that they would pretend to intervene in Sister Jejia's marriage first. However, the Sun family had no say in Sister Jejia's marriage at all. However, it was a great joy that she was able to get such a good marriage in the end. It was originally impossible between you and the third young lady of the Luo family, but it's different now. This is a good opportunity. Prince Kang's people won't object to it. Even if the Empress prefers the third young lady of the Luo family to be Prince Kang's second consort, from the Luo family's point of view, you are naturally the best choice. I believe the Empress won't be too stubborn. I will go to the palace tomorrow. Thank you, grandmother. Son Yilin was overjoyed. I will spend my life in this house, in this backyard. If I can see the two of you happy, It will be a consolation. Yilin, I still say the same thing to you as Ijia. If you can get what you want, you should cherish it. Grandmother, don't worry. I understand what you mean. If I can marry the third young lady of the Luo family, I will definitely treat her well. Yes, I believe you. She was too lazy to say a word to those who she knew would not listen to her, even if it was her own son. With her grandmother's help, this matter was basically in the bag. However, son Yilin still couldn't help feeling uneasy before the final confirmation. Fortunately, he didn't show his emotions. When son Ijia came over, she happened to bump into son Yilin, who was about to leave. Son Ijia's eyes moved and motioned the people behind her to stay away. Fifth brother, did you come to see grandmother alone because of Sister Wan? After getting an affirmative nod from son Yilin, son Ijia deliberated for a moment. I think it's better to tell you something, fifth brother. Do you still remember when I went to the Luo family that day when you were drunk? Sister Wan said a lot to me because she was already engaged at that time. There was no need to tell you those things. It's different now. Son Ijia tried to restore Jingwan's original intention as much as possible. Son Yilin unconsciously clenched his fists. She's right to be concerned. Ding General Manor is a dangerous place. If possible, I don't want to stay here either. At this moment, son Yilin secretly made a decision in his heart. In fact, I think there's an even more important point. Sister Wan is a good person. She's gentle and considerate. Most of the time, she's soft-hearted. However, there are some things that she's colder and more ruthless than anyone else. In my opinion, marrying her isn't the most difficult thing. The most difficult thing is how to win her heart. In terms of feelings, Sister Wan is more rational than ordinary people. She wants Jinghua to treat me well. She wants Jinghua to be a couple with me for the rest of our lives. Fifth brother, do you understand what I mean? Son Yilin smiled. Little sister, you've said it so clearly. If I still don't understand, wouldn't I be too stupid? It's enough for me to wait until she or I are done with our lives and truly adore me when we close our eyes at the end of our lives. Son Ijia was stunned. Life was too long. Unforeseen events could happen at any time. Verbal promises could become empty talk. Fifth brother wanted to use his entire life to do this. Even if Sister Wan waited until one of them died to believe that he was faithful, he would gladly endure it. I didn't expect that fifth brother would be so infatuated. Son Yilin just smiled. Jingwan didn't care about her future husband. If she didn't have any hope in the beginning, then she would be a qualified wife and mother. Other than that, she wouldn't be able to get anything else from her. But if she was given hope in the beginning and her hopes were shattered, then she would be cold to the end. Just as Luo Jinghua thought, under normal circumstances, if you made a mistake that she couldn't tolerate, there might be a possibility of redemption. If you made a promise and then broke it, even if you worked 10 times or 100 times harder, you wouldn't be able to get her forgiveness. Jingwan actually didn't persist much. Really, she only persisted a little. After son Yilin left, son Ijia went to see old Madam Sunday. She told old Madam Sun what she didn't want to say to old Madam Sun shyly and happily. A couple for the rest of their lives. That's something that ordinary people can dream of. It's just that their family's conditions don't allow it. If they have money and can afford it, how many men can hold on to it? Grandmother, I believe in Jinghua. Okay. Son Ijia stayed with old Madam Sun for a longer time. At the homecoming banquet, Luo Jinghua was drunk again and couldn't get up. Son Ijia was very distressed. She helped him back to his original courtyard and took care of him personally. The two of them didn't leave Duke Dinghua's mansion until the sun set in the west. As for the bad people they met during this period and the bad things they heard, son Ijia ignored them all. As for the concubine mother of the concubine who almost tore the 100 birds worshipping the phoenix painting, she begged her to plead with her mother to let her out. Son Ijia only gave her a sneer. Then he heard her coldly threatening him. She was so ruthless. What would happen if her husband found out? Son Ijia hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she still stuck to her thoughts. She didn't believe that Jingwu wouldn't stand on her side and really think that she was a ruthless person. Sure enough, after Luo Jingwu knew, he smiled and only said that she was now a member of the Luo family. She didn't need to care so much about her family's affairs. Then, she forgot about the things she wanted to ask before she came. After returning to the Luo family, Sun Yijia saw Jingwan, as usual, and couldn't help but reach out to touch her head. Jingwan tilted her head slightly and looked at her with a puzzled expression. At this moment, Jingwan made Sun Yijia truly feel that she was only 14 years old. She thought about all the other 14-year-old girls she had met before. What were they like? They were either naive and didn't know anything about the world, or they hid a knife behind a smile and were scheming. Sister Wan turned out to be an anomaly that people wanted to hold in the palm of their hands. A couple for a lifetime. You will have one too. Jingwan smiled non-committally. It seemed that her elder brother was really honest with his wife and told her everything. That idiot didn't grasp the perfect opportunity to win his wife's favor. When they were lovey-dovey, he dragged her, his younger sister, into it. Wasn't that a killjoy? He was really a blockhead. However, it seemed that her best friend and sister-in-law also told her elder brother a lot. What did Sun Yilin promise her? Old Madam Sun, who rarely entered the palace, sent a token to the palace early in the morning and asked to see the Empress. Old Madam Sun's excuse to the Empress was that she liked the third daughter of the Luo family the first time she saw her. At that time, she wanted her to be Sun Yilin's wife. However, the difference in status between the two was a little big. Moreover, old Madame Luo had already chosen someone for her, so she could only give up. Who would have thought that the third daughter of the Luo family would break off the engagement? Now, all the noble families would take the initiative to ask for a marriage. In this way, she could naturally ask for a marriage for Sun Yilin. She had many grandchildren, but only one she cared about the most. In addition, Sun Yilin's marriage was still uncertain. Now, this one had the same hobby as him. There was no better one. Perhaps this was God's will. Since her own mother had begged her, the Empress naturally could not clench her teeth and not let go. Besides, because of her unspeakable ambition, in fact, her son did not need a good Empress in the future. Being obedient to her was the best. Therefore, in the case that she needed Sun Yilin, why not help Sun Yilin? Mother, I naturally have no problem here, but you should also know that this matter can't be decided by me alone. Old Madam Sun had a card up her sleeve. I will ask to see His Majesty later. It's enough for you to let everyone know the purpose of my visit. The Empress's heart moved slightly. As a woman with a title, it was not so easy to see the Emperor. However, looking at her mother's attitude, it seemed that it was not a big deal. As long as she asked for an audience, the Emperor would definitely meet her. Could it be that there was something between her mother and the Emperor that she didn't know about? Therefore, she simply nodded. This is a small matter. In that case, I will take my leave first. Although the Empress was a strong and ambitious woman, she was more or less alienated from her own mother. It was more or less her sore point. It's not easy for mother to enter the palace. Sit for a while more. No, as the master of the harem, the Empress is busy with palace affairs. It's inconvenient for me to disturb you for a long time. The Empress was also very helpless. Her own mother, except for the palace banquet, would probably never enter the palace in her life if there was no matter. When did the relationship between mother and daughter become so estranged? Her father wanted to marry her to Lu Qingdi, who was still the crown prince, and her mother was originally firmly opposed. The two of them quarreled for a long time because of this. Then she took the initiative to propose that she was willing to marry for the sake of Ding General Manor. From then on, her mother's attitude towards her completely changed. It had been decades. She was the Empress, the mother of the country, but her mother had never changed her attitude towards her. In that case, I won't force you to stay, but I live in the palace and can't go out to see you. Mother, you have to take care of yourself. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will take my leave." At this time, Lu Chengdi had already left the court and was reading the memorials in the imperial study. Old Madam Sun was not a person without discretion. After confirming that there were no officials in the imperial study, Old Madam Sun asked for an audience. It was the first time for Lu Chengdi's close servant to encounter such a thing, but he didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly reported to Lu Chengdi. After learning the news, the Empress muttered to herself, "Is it really so easy to see her?" She frowned slightly. Her mother was Lu Chengdi's official mother-in-law, but when her father was still alive, the emperor didn't like him much. From the looks of it, her mother's relationship with the emperor was not ordinary. However, after so many years, there was no trace of it. Her mother had never asked to see the emperor before. If it wasn't for Sun Yilin, she was afraid that when her mother was buried, no one would know. Perhaps her mother was the best chess piece, but this chess piece was hidden too deep. Until now, it had only shown a little sign. Even so, it seemed that it was completely out of control and unwilling to be used by them. The feeling of not being able to pick up a good card when it was on the side was really not ordinary. Not long after old Madam Sun entered the imperial study, everyone in the imperial harem got the news. Most people just sighed, but only a few people were surprised. They probably didn't expect that such a person would appear at this time. Go, quickly find out why old Madam of Ding General Manor entered the imperial harem. These people had the intention, and the Empress also had the intention. Naturally, the purpose of old Madam Sun entering the imperial harem was soon known. The Empress originally wanted to release some specious news that was more beneficial to her side, but thinking of her mother's temper, she had to give up. She didn't change her attitude towards her own daughter for decades, which showed that she had a hard temper. If she really wanted to help them, she would have revealed something. It was obvious that she didn't want to help them. In this case, if she did something to annoy her, she didn't know what she would do. If she didn't even care about her face, she, as the Empress, would be labeled as unfilial. She would wait to be impeached. If Lu Chengdi wanted to, it was possible that he would take this opportunity to take her position as the Empress. Is it because of Sun Yilin's request to marry the Luo family's third miss? The Empress couldn't make the decision, so she directly went to the Emperor. As soon as this result came out, everyone knew that the others had no chance. If Lu Chengdi didn't intervene, they could fight openly and secretly. Once Lu Chengdi intervened, even if he didn't give an edict, they could only give up. When Li Hongyuan got the news, he was a little surprised. In his previous life, he didn't know what the relationship between old Madam Sun and his father was. Sun Yilin and Wan Wan's engagement had nothing to do with it. This was originally a part of his plan, but he didn't want his father to give an edict. This marriage was not so easy to withdraw unless something similar to Sun Yijia happened to Wan Wan. Otherwise, it would be useless to start with Sun Yilin. However, how could Li Hongyuan let that kind of thing happen to Jingwan? Even if he was the one who saved the beauty, he still couldn't do it. I want to know what old Madam Sun said to my father in the imperial study. In this way, he had to use the pawns around Lu Chengdi. It should be known that although Lu Chengdi's ability was ordinary, in fact, he kept a close eye on the people around him. Li Hongyuan didn't intend to do anything by placing people around him, but just in case. Once he used them, there was a possibility that Lu Chengdi would find out and remove them. However, Li Hongyuan never worried that Lu Chengdi would find out that they were his people. Because it was related to Jingwan, even if he had to destroy an important pawn, he wouldn't hesitate. Old Madam Sun didn't stay in the imperial study for too long and left. Therefore, Li Hongyuan also got the news very quickly. In fact, they didn't say anything important. Old Madam Sun only said that she wanted to see Lu Chengdi. She didn't mention a word about the matter between Sun Yilin and Jingwan. Lu Chengdi also said a few words about her health. Although the time was short, the two were quite close. More importantly, Lu Chengdi didn't call old Madam Sun mother-in-law or old Madam Sun, but aunt. This form of address was particularly thought-provoking. Go and find out what relationship old Madam Sun has with imperial grandmother, or whether my father had any special interaction with old Madam Sun before he ascended the throne. With a word from the master, the subordinate would run out of legs. This was really not a joke. Think about it. The shortest time was 20 or 30 years ago. If they checked the relationship between old Madam Sun and the former empress, they would naturally have to trace it back to before the former empress became the empress, not to mention the time. In all likelihood, they wouldn't find anything in the end. Li Hongyuan thought about old Madam Sun's meeting with Lu Qingdi. It was unlikely that she directly asked Lu Qingdi to give an edict to grant her a marriage. When Lu Qingdi ascended the throne, she had never asked for anything. Including the last time when Sun Yijia granted him a marriage, she didn't do anything. It could be seen that she was very sensible. She wouldn't embarrass Lu Qingdi or let Lu Qingdi disgrace Tianwei. Naturally, she wouldn't ask for a marriage. She just wanted others to know Lu Qingdi's attitude towards her. Even if Lu Qingdi knew her purpose, he couldn't deny the fact that she really wanted to see him. He would probably just laugh it off. Even the relationship between the two of them wouldn't be damaged. Old Madam Sun was also a person who couldn't be underestimated. After understanding the key point, Li Hongyuan temporarily held back and waited for the next thing. Old Madam Sun returned to her house and went back to her courtyard. She directly told the servants that she wouldn't see anyone except Sun Yilin. As a result, Duke Dinghua, Sun Yibin, and Li Hongyi, the grandson of a prince, were all rebuffed. They wanted to persuade her with emotion and reason. They wanted to tell her how serious the current situation was and that they needed her help. However, they couldn't even see her. No matter how much they prepared, it was useless. It was the first time that Li Hongyi had been treated coldly by his grandmother. He was more or less unhappy. However, when he thought about it, even his mother couldn't do anything to his grandmother. What could he do? Li Hongyi had never thought that he had never been close to old Madam Sunday. He had always put on the airs of a prince. Since that was the case, old Madam Sun naturally respected him as a member of the family. If he could be like an ordinary grandson, even if he was cold to the empress, she would not be cold to him. After all, he was her only grandson. Did he really think that she did not love him? Now that he found that she was useful, he rushed forward. What did he take her for? Naturally, he couldn't blame her for being angry. Therefore, this feeling was really mutual. Since he couldn't see her, he could only think of other ways. As a result, when Sun Yilin returned from the palace, he was stopped by a group of people. Everyone had the same meaning. Your grandmother is waiting for you. Sun Yilin was a member of the inner court, but he wasn't in the imperial study at that time. Therefore, he only knew that his grandmother went directly to the emperor. He was also very surprised. He didn't expect that his grandmother would make such a big move when she did. Sun Yilin probably knew what the current situation was. He could avoid it temporarily. However, he could avoid it for a while, but he could avoid it for a lifetime. Moreover, if he delayed a little, Sun Yibin would probably label him as unfilial. Since they had made up their minds to follow him to see his grandmother, they couldn't let him back down. Sun Yilin followed their wishes. He didn't even change his clothes and went directly to his grandmother's courtyard. The servants guarding the courtyard let Sun Yilin in alone and didn't let anyone else in. None of these people were to be trifled with. Before, they had all shakily locked people outside, but now they didn't dare to do so at all. Old Madam Sun's excuse to send them away was that she was resting. In fact, she was indeed resting. At this moment, she only sent a mother out to pass on a message. Fifth young master, old Madam said that she will find a matchmaker to talk to the Luo family and then prepare for the marriage proposal. As for the specifics, let Madam take care of it. There's no need to disturb her if there's nothing important. Even paying respects will be changed to the 1st and 15th day of each month in the future. Very good. It was obvious that she wanted to block them all outside. Even Sun Yilin was not seen. I'll have to trouble mother to reply to grandmother. Grandson understands. I'll take my leave first. After Sun Yilin finished speaking, he simply left. The others were naturally unwilling to leave like this, especially Sun Yilin. If he could get the support of his grandmother, it would be easy for him to control Duke Dingwa's mansion. He made up his mind and directly rushed into the inner room. No one could stop him. "Grandmother, grandson will invite you." Accompanied by the sound of something falling to the ground and breaking. Before Sun Yilin could finish speaking, he saw something smash over. It hit his forehead and blood flowed out. "Get out." Even when she saw the blood, old Madam Sun was not moved at all. Sun Yilin couldn't believe it. Even if his grandmother didn't like him very much in the past, she wouldn't hate him, let alone directly hit him. However, before he could speak again, old Madam Sun picked up another thing and smashed it over. Sun Yilin ran out in a hurry and almost collided with the people who rushed in after hearing his voice. When everyone saw his forehead full of blood, they didn't dare to go inside and hurriedly found a doctor. Sun Yilin found Duchess Ding and told her what had happened. Duchess Ding was stunned. After all, she was a woman of the inner house. She had her own affairs to deal with. Naturally, she didn't know about the things in the palace so quickly. Even if a group of people gathered at home, Duke Dingwa was there. She didn't need to do anything. Moreover, this kind of thing was very common. Therefore, she didn't know what had happened until Sun Yilin told her. In the end, she was the last one to know about her son's marriage. Moreover, she was only asked to find a matchmaker to prepare for the marriage proposal. She didn't need to participate in the rest, let alone ask for her opinion. What was this? She was the dignified Duchess Ding, the mistress of the family, but she had been reduced to this. And old Madam, after delegating power to her, had never intervened in the affairs of the manor, big or small. She had never intervened in the children's marriage before. Now, she suddenly played such a trick. How could she endure it? Those sisters-in-law would definitely laugh at her secretly. Although Sun Yilin was intelligent, he really didn't know what a woman's mind was. However, when she heard that her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were enemies, the more her son admired and helped his daughter-in-law, the more unhappy she was as a mother. Seeing his mother's expression, he couldn't help but frown. "Mother, do you dislike the third Miss of the Luo family so much?" Because of Sun Yilin's words, Duchess Ding almost died of anger. This evil child only thought about that person and didn't care about her feelings at all. "Yes, I don't like her." "You won't marry her?" "Mother, don't make trouble. Grandmother has already gone to His Majesty." Duchess Ding gasped, her chest heaving up and down. Oh, look, this was the good son she had raised. He had worked hard for more than 10 years, but he was not as good as an outsider whom she had only met a few times. They were all bastards and ingrates. "Get out of here." "Mother." Sun Yilin had a headache. It was supposed to be a happy thing. Did it have to be like this? Duchess Ding sneered. "Why? Are you afraid that I will ruin your good fortune? Don't worry. Your grandmother said it herself. I don't dare to disobey her even if I have 10 times the courage." Sun Yilin felt tired. He didn't understand why there was a conflict between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Why did it have to be like this? "Then I'll have to trouble you, Mother. I have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653044. HTML chapter error. Click here to report registration is exempted. We will deal with it as soon as possible. Please wait patiently after reporting and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 122. Because of Duchess Ding's attitude. Sun Yilin's good mood was disturbed a little, but in general, it didn't affect anything. However, it also strengthened some ideas in his heart. Because Duchess Ding was unhappy, she originally wanted to do it perfunctorily, but after all, it was also related to her son's face and the face of Duke Dingwa's mansion. In addition, Madame Dowager had facilitated this matter. If she acted carelessly, she might arouse Madame Dowager's dissatisfaction, which would not be good for her at all. However, her good impression of Jingwan suddenly dropped to the freezing point. So what if her son was biased now? After marrying into Duke Dingwa's mansion, she still had the final say. Wasn't it natural for a mother-in-law to teach and harm her daughter-in-law? Therefore, in the early stage, she still did her best and prepared to show the best attitude of Duke Dingwa's mansion to let the world see how much she valued her daughter-in-law. In fact, she didn't mean to suppress Jingwan at this time and let her see her identity clearly. At the same time, she also wanted to make the other daughters-in-law jealous. It should be known that in terms of family background, none of them were worse than Jingwan, even if they were the daughter-in-law of a concubine. Now, she was even more valued than the eldest daughter-in-law. How could it be? If Jingwan married into Duke Dingwa's mansion, she would inevitably be besieged on all sides. Duchess Ding acted very quickly. Every 2 days, the matchmaker would come to the Luo family's house. Originally, in the opinion of Luo Peishan and Madame Luo, even if this matter was handed over to Sun Yilin, it would take some time. However, they didn't expect that Duke Dingwa's mansion had such a big killer like Madame Sunday. As soon as she made a move, she shocked everyone. Just when the matchmaker was ready to fight, he had to stop angrily. Therefore, Duke Dingwa's mansion came to propose marriage so fast that it was a little hard for people to react. Putting everything else aside, this was the first time the matchmaker had brought a gift to the Luo family, and it was only to scout the way. This marriage proposal gift was quite expensive. Originally, there were only 30 or so items that represented good luck, but what the matchmaker brought, in addition to the necessary items, there were more than 100 items, and each of them was very expensive. If this was a marriage proposal for the eldest son, or if the Luo family status was very high, this would naturally not be a problem, but it was neither of these. When Madame Luo saw these items, her face darkened. Was this a marriage proposal or a forced marriage? If it weren't for the fact that she still had a trace of rationality left, old Madame Luo would have kicked the matchmaker out along with these things. She had already chosen Sun Yilin. If she drove him out at this time, there would inevitably be new twists and turns. However, the actions of Ding General Manor, or rather, the actions of Duchess Ding, made her have a trace of doubt. Was it really good to marry Wanwan into such a family? There was no doubt about Wanwan's ability and means. Moreover, if she was really willing to put down her status to please someone, it was not impossible for her to do so. However, to let Wanwan break her pride and let her suffer such grievances, old Madame Luo felt very distressed at the thought of it. In fact, the matchmaker was more or less embarrassed. What Duchess Ding did was indeed a little unkind. No matter how much she valued this daughter-in-law, she couldn't make others hate her at this time. No matter how much she held her hand and said that this girl had the support of her mother-in-law after marrying into Duke Dingwa's mansion, she still couldn't agree with her approach. She said a lot of good things in front of old Madame Luo. Old Madame Luo promised to consider it, and then sent the matchmaker out. This was a very normal thing. Except for special circumstances such as bestowing marriage, generally speaking, even if both sides had agreed in private in advance, the matchmaker would still be reserved when proposing marriage for the first time at the mountain gate. However, what the matchmaker felt from old Madame Luo was not that the Luo family was reserved, but that she really wanted to consider it. This time, because all parties were paying attention, it was naturally impossible to be as quiet as the first engagement with Qin Zhengmin. Moreover, perhaps Prince Kang's people wanted to show off their victory to their opponents, and Duchess Ding deliberately made a big fuss. It was not an exaggeration to say that it made a big fuss in the city. It really seemed like a forced marriage. It should have been a happy thing, but there were few people in the Luo family who were happy. Originally, those servants who were exceptionally happy felt that the third young lady deserved to be their family's third young lady. Even if she had broken off the engagement, there was still someone better. Who was Sun Yilin? He was the first young master in the capital, one of the 4 talents, and a favorite in front of the emperor. His future was limitless. Many young ladies in the boudoir dreamed of him. Then, those who saw through the clues explained it to them, letting them know the twists and turns inside. Some people sighed endlessly, but some people did not care. How many daughters-in-law were not like this? With such a husband and a kind mother-in-law, how could there be such a good thing? How could there be such a good thing? Sun Ijia knew that she had encountered such a good thing. When she found out about this matter, she was so angry that she cried. She lived comfortably in the Luo family, and no one made things difficult for her. Her best sister-in-law had just started to discuss the marriage, and her mother had already begun to plan how to embarrass her. How could she, the daughter in the Luo family, endure it? Didn't it ever occur to her that if she didn't treat her daughter well, she would also treat her daughter badly? Did she even have her daughter in her heart? Sun Yijia could live comfortably in the hands of the elders of the Luo family, including Jingbo's kindness to her. She knew very well that it was more because of Jingwan. It was all because of his love for her. Jingbo saw that she was very close to her, and he also had a place in her heart, but it was far less important than Jingwan. After all, they had only known each other for a short time. At this time, if he were to choose between her and Sister Wan, he would definitely choose her sister. She wasn't jealous, because there was nothing to be jealous of. However, when she thought about how her newlywed husband was cold to her, how the originally kind old madam was cold to her, and how even someone like her mother-in-law would show displeasure towards her, Sun Yijia only felt pain as if her heart was being cut by a knife. Her biological mother couldn't bear to see her being good. Okay? Moreover, Sister One was such a good girl. She couldn't find a second one. Why did she have to target her? Didn't she know that the more she did this, the more her son would be at odds with her? After Sun Yijia saw that Luo Jingbua had returned, she looked at him carefully, afraid to see alienation and disgust in his eyes. Luo Jingbua looked at her quietly for a moment. To be honest, after knowing what Duke Ding's family had done, he was really angry. On one hand, it was his biological sister, and, on the other hand, it was his wife, whom he didn't have a deep relationship with. Naturally, he would subconsciously vent his anger. However, on the way back, he was intercepted by someone sent by his little sister. Luo Jingbua reached out and hugged Sun Yijia. "Yijia, you are now a member of a Luo family." His little sister said so. He shouldn't vent his anger on her. She didn't know anything. She was innocent. Sun Yijia hugged Luo Jingbua and couldn't stop crying. She kept apologizing. After all, that was her mother. However, Duchess Ding's wife didn't have a good time either. She didn't expect that she would make a big mistake in a moment of anger. Her son criticized her, and her mother-in-law, who had always been strict but didn't say harsh words, directly scolded her. The most damaging sentence was, she looked like a kind mother, but her heart was actually more vicious than a stepmother's. Duchess Ding wanted to refute, but she really forgot that her daughter was still living in the Luo family. She was unrepentant. Then, old Lady Sun told her to get out. Before it was over, she was called into the palace by the Empress. The Empress's tone was as usual, but the content of her words made Duchess Ding feel ashamed and angry. "I thought my sister-in-law was a smart person, but now it seems that I was wrong. You are not only stupid, but also incomparably stupid. Or do you have a grudge against me or my son? Third Miss Luo's favor, if it was in my son's hands, it might even surpass Prince Rui's. How many people wanted to marry her? It was only because of my mother that those people stopped and gave Yilin the opportunity to get her first. Are you so eager to push her away? Are you eager for someone else to ascend the throne and then eradicate Prince Kang's family?" Although Duchess Ding was also very powerful, she only showed it on the issue of the inner residence. Her vision of the outside world was still a little low. She didn't expect that a little girl like her could be so capable. Believe it or not, once the Luo family refuses Duke Ding's mansion, there will immediately be groups of people running to the Luo family to propose marriage. No matter what method you use, you'd better do it beautifully and make the Luo family happy. If the Luo family refuses the marriage, you don't have to sit in the position of Duchess Ding anymore. Duchess Ding naturally didn't dare to neglect it. However, at the same time, her bad impression of Jingwan directly evolved into hatred. If it weren't for her, her son wouldn't have been at odds with her. If it weren't for her, she wouldn't have fallen into such a situation. Moreover, a girl stirred up a storm. She didn't know her place. How could she have a good family? But no matter what in her heart, Duchess Ding still made a good gesture and personally raised the Luo family. Her attitude towards Jingwan was even closer than that of her own daughter. Jingwan just kissed and smiled the whole time. Duchess Ding kept saying that she really did it because she valued it, but she didn't expect that it would cause a bad result. She also said that she didn't think it through, and so on. Madame Luo had discussed it with Luo Peishan in private. Moreover, Luo Peishan had also met Sun Yilin in private and got his guarantee. In this way, Madame Luo reluctantly agreed. Duchess Ding finally breathed a sigh of relief. In order to settle this matter as soon as possible, she went to the Luo family to send the gift the next day. This time, there was no problem. Although the gift was richer than that of ordinary people, it was also suitable for Jingwan's identity. It could be regarded as a well-behaved gift. Because the time was tight, the goose used was also a wooden goose. Then, they exchanged the marriage invitation. After the marriage was settled, the rest of the matter was basically settled smoothly. The happiest person was Sun Yilin. His heart seemed to have been put into practice. However, during the whole process, Jingwan was the most unperturbed. She was terrifyingly calm. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/18007/6653046. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is exempted. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version, reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 123. Jingwan and Sun Yilin's marriage was confirmed. Even if the Luo family completely sided with Prince Kang's faction, many people would sigh and wring their hands. Naturally, there would be some who gnashed their teeth in hatred. If they lost after many battles, they might not be reconciled. But they would not be so sullen. In this way, not only Li Honyuan wanted to know the relationship between old Madame Sun and Lu Qingdi, but others also wanted to know. They were bound to find out the truth. Li Hongming clenched his fists. Except for the third master of the concubine's family, no one else in the Luo family had any contact with his good brother's faction. It was not so easy to integrate into them. The original people ostracized him because he would share the benefits with them. And Luo Peishan did not rely on himself, so he might not be willing to get involved. In this way, he might be able to reverse the situation. Not to mention other things, since Third Master Luo dared to come to his door, he could not retreat at this time. Once this strategy of sowing discord was used well, it would be a great weapon. Perhaps it could make the enemy fall apart without spending a single soldier. Luo Jingying was still resentful of Jingwan's good luck. She broke off the engagement once, and still had a good marriage that all the girls in the capital were envious of, but she could not express it at all. At this time, she received something from outside. It was a set of expensive head ornaments. Although Luo Jingying did not know the specifics, at least it was comparable to one of the 12 sets of head ornaments of Sun Yijia, and there were a total of 18 pieces. Luo Jingying touched them one by one and liked them very much. Then she found her most beautiful clothes and put the whole set of head ornaments on her body one by one. However, she was very dissatisfied with the result. In her opinion, this dress was really too shabby and did not match the head ornament at all. Sun Yijia's dowry had a lot of good materials, such as moonlight silk, peacock silk, and mermaid muslin. Moreover, there was more than one bolt. However, Miss Sun, who was once famous in the capital, was as stingy as that *TCH Luo Jingwan. Miss, this head ornament is very beautiful. Luo Jingying slammed it down and turned around to look at her etiquette instructor. The etiquette instructor hurriedly tried to take it down. She was both terrified and angry. Didn't I say that no one is allowed to come in? If this kind of private exchange was found out, even if she didn't die, she would lose a layer of skin. Young lady, don't panic. This servant will definitely not tell anyone about this, including Madam. This servant is here to serve Mississippi. We are one body. The etiquette instructor approached her unhurriedly. Yes, it's really beautiful. It's perfect for you. She only lacked a piece of clothing. However, she already had such a good head ornament, so why would she be afraid of not having enough clothes? However, shouldn't Miss thank that infatuated person for such an expensive item? Luo Jingying's panic turned into shyness. But, Nanny, I have nothing. How can I thank him? Miss, how can you not have anything? You have the most precious thing in the world, and that is yourself. The etiquette instructor said meaningfully. Miss, you should at least meet him and thank him in person. Speaking of this, Luo Jingying was a little discouraged. But grandmother won't let me go out. If Miss really wants to go out, this servant has a way. It just depends on whether Miss dares to do it. Luo Jingying's eyes lit up immediately. Why wouldn't I dare? Nanny, tell me quickly. It's actually very simple. You just have to return a piece of clothing and go out from the back door. This servant is very familiar with the woman guarding the back door. Nanny, I want to go out. I want to go out now. Don't be anxious. Mississippi, wait until tomorrow morning. This servant will send the message out first today, so that Miss won't waste time tomorrow. But Nanny, how can you send the message? He is. Luo Jingying also knew that the prince's mansion was not so easy to get close to. Last time, she was in a daze, so she didn't ask him how to send the message. The etiquette instructor smiled carelessly. According to that infatuated person's attitude towards Miss, he will definitely leave someone outside the mansion to keep an eye on Miss's movements. Therefore, this servant only needs to go out and find him. Is what Nanny said true? Luo Jingying asked somewhat excitedly, feeling very sweet in her heart. The etiquette instructor nodded with certainty. Then I'll have to trouble you, Nanny. Luo Jingying said with a particularly sweet smile. It's my duty. After saluting, the etiquette instructor left. Oh, a simple, ignorant, and stupid girl. She was blindly immersed in her illusory love and couldn't see the current situation clearly. The Luo family was already tied to Prince Kang's boat. Anyone with half a brain should know that if they continued to be entangled with Prince Rue, they would definitely suffer. Don't think that nothing will happen. Prince Rue's purpose was so obvious. Once he succeeded, how could he hide it? Until now, Luo Jingying thought that she had hidden it well. Even if one or two people around her knew something, they didn't know who the other party was. However, she was just a servant who was following her master's orders. However, it was obvious that Prince Rue was favored, but the Luo family was forced to be tied to Prince Kang's side. However, it didn't matter. Prince Rue hadn't given up yet. At worst, he would only protect the third branch in the end. So what if the third branch became the backbone of a Luo family? At the same time, Third Master Luo, Luo Rongping, also secretly received a gift from Prince Rue. It was 100,000 taels of silver and a gorgeous dagger inlaid with several gems. Coercion and temptation were so simple and crude. Luo Rongping was very clear that in this family, there were many things that his father would only tell his eldest brother. Now that the Luo family was in a struggle for the throne, it was reasonable to say that as a member of the Luo family, he should follow the family's footsteps without hesitation. However, it would be extremely difficult for him to get away from Prince Rue's side. Not only that, his father didn't think highly of him at all. It seemed that it would be the same whether he was there or not. Moreover, he had spent so much effort on Prince Kang's people before, but it basically didn't work. But now, it seemed that Prince Rue wanted to put him in an important position. Should he choose to unite with the family and continue to be disliked? Even if the Luo family had the merit of ascending to the throne in the end, He might be mediocre for the rest of his life? Or should he choose to sever ties with the family and be put in an important position, gambling on a brilliant future? Luo, romping quietly, looked at the things on the table. He didn't think too much and put them away. Obviously, he chose selfishness and turned his back on the family. Apart from a few people who knew about it, the Luo family and many outsiders thought that Luo Peishan was forced to board Prince Kang's ship. However, Luo Rongyan still had a faint suspicion that the source of this matter might be his father. He considered his daughter and chose Sun Yilin. This thought didn't just appear in his mind. It was as if it had taken root. After all, his father had just talked about this problem, and the matter was basically settled a day or two later. It was too much of a coincidence. The imperial court was also not calm. It was because the old minister of the Ministry of Personnel was preparing to resign after the examination, just as everyone expected. As expected, he formally handed in a memorial to resign. Lu Chengdi rejected it twice, but finally approved it on the third memorial. The Ministry of Personnel was the head of the 6 ministries, and the Minister of Personnel was the head of the Ministry of Personnel. That was a real high position and power. Who knows how many people were eyeing a fat piece of meat? Li Hongming originally wanted to take Luo Peishan as his subordinate and push him to the position, but now there was an unforeseen event. Although he hadn't given up yet, he was hesitant about whether to push him or not. After all, the current Luo family's third young lady was only engaged to Sun Yilin. There was still a year before the Luo family's marriageable age. Moreover, the Luo family may not wait for her to marry. In such a long time, anything could happen. In order to win Luo Peishan's trust, Prince Kang and the others were running with all their strength. If Prince Rui pushed him again, it was basically a sure thing. The Gong Prince's people could only watch helplessly. Moreover, there was a possibility that Luo Peishan could be used by him. So, should he take this bet or not? Li Hongming gathered all his aides and discussed all aspects in detail. Although imperial concubine, Su didn't have the ambition to take power like the empress. Her wisdom couldn't be ignored. Therefore, Li Hongming also asked for her opinion. Pushing Luo Peishan up was very risky, but if Li Hongming's plan succeeded, it could bring huge benefits. More importantly, Li Hongming didn't have a more suitable candidate in his hands. The people who were qualified to sit in that position held more important positions. He couldn't just give up the benefits that he had been working on for several years for a position that he hadn't obtained yet. Finally, he decided to push. Because he was already in a quagmire, Luo Peishan didn't have so many concerns. He was no longer leisurely in the court. He rarely spoke except for his own duties. He became active. At this time, people also saw the power of the Minister of the Ministry of Rights. He was knowledgeable and talented. His mouth was like a sword. Many times, he hit the nail on the head. Those who debated with him were likely to be angered to the point of vomiting blood and dying in battle. Sitting high on the dragon throne, Emperor Lu Chengdi cast sidelong glances at him. He didn't expect that Minister Luo, who usually looked very elegant and undisciplined, was actually a fierce general. Emperor Lu Chengdi asked Luo Peishan to stay and talk. The monarch and his minister had a heart-to-heart talk. Luo Peishan was frank. When he didn't want to be involved in a dispute, he naturally had to keep a low profile. When he had no choice, he naturally didn't hide anymore. He didn't want to do anything else, but he wanted to increase the confidence of his descendants. Otherwise, there would always be some people who wanted to bully them. As long as he was still alive and an official, he absolutely couldn't ignore it. Naturally, the news that Jingwan was bullied by Duchess Ding would not reach Emperor Lu Chengdi's ears. Emperor Lu Chengdi thought that the younger generation of the Luo family might have a dispute with others and suffered losses. Luo Peishan's attitude also clearly told Emperor Lu Chengdi that he was aiming for the position of the Minister of the Ministry of Rights. As for increasing the support of Prince Kang, it was inevitable. In order to push Prince Kang to the throne, he would do his best. Now it was up to Emperor Lu Chengdi whether he wanted to suppress Prince Kang or not. Luo Jingying's etiquette instructor was right. There were people of Li Hongming near the Luo family. She just pretended to be looking for someone, and someone directly came to find her. However, the expected date was not agreed. Instead, it was pushed back another day. It was because yesterday, Emperor Lu Chengdi asked the courtiers to submit memorials to recommend the candidate for the position of Minister of the Ministry of Rights today. If there was no accident, the result would be out tomorrow. At this time, Li Hongming had no time to deal with Luo Jingying. However, they probably didn't expect that their words and deeds were clearly heard and seen by a third party. Sure enough, in the morning court the next day, Emperor Lu Chengdi followed the courtier's opinion. Luo Peishan was popular, and Emperor Lu Chengdi didn't shy away from saying this point. Then he appointed the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights to temporarily manage the Ministry of Rights. If he did well, he might directly take over the position of Minister of Rights. If he didn't do well, he would naturally choose someone else. It was only then that Prince Kang's people realized that Prince Rui's side did not appear weak, because they did not have a candidate. Instead, it was because most of them had recommended Luo Peishan, and they had even more memorials than Prince Rui's side. What did this mean? After the court ended, before Prince Kang's people could say anything, people on Prince Rui's side had already congratulated him one after another. And from the looks of it, they were sincerely happy and didn't seem to be faking it at all. Li Hongyi was originally a rather impulsive person. This scene was simply like poking a hornet's nest. Before the crowd dispersed, Li Hongyi directly glared at Luo Peishan fiercely, and then left in a huff. Li Hongming walked to Luo Peishan with a smile on his face. Lord Luo, congratulations. Eldest imperial brother has always been like that. Don't be offended by him. Luo Peishan faintly agreed. He thought that Li Hongming might not give up so easily, but he didn't expect him to do it so thoroughly. He completely gave up the position of Minister of the Ministry of Personnel, and so blatantly drove a wedge between him and Prince Kang. But because it was too open and above board, the effect was indescribably good. Not to mention Li Hongyi, even many of his strategists looked at him strangely, wondering if this had been planned long ago. On the surface, they had taken refuge with Prince Kang, but in private, they had already colluded with Prince Rui in order to push Luo Peishan to the position of Minister of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Hongming was very satisfied with this result. It was better than he expected. His decision was indeed correct. He couldn't be more clear about Li Hongyi's character. Even if Li Hongyi was aware of his intentions, he was afraid that Luo Peishan would still have a knot in his heart. It would be impossible for him to trust Luo Peishan wholeheartedly. Then, the effect of Luo Peishan would be greatly reduced, or even counterproductive. If this happened too many times, it would be strange if Luo Peishan's heart didn't turn cold. At that time, he would let bygones be bygones and treat him with respect. The possibility of him working for him wasn't too high. In this short period of time, he had seen the power of Luo Peishan. With the help of his position as Minister of the Ministry of Personnel, he would definitely be like a tiger that had grown wings. Li Hongming's mood was very good, very good. Seeing him like this, Prince Kang's people's suspicion deepened. Luo Peishan sighed in his heart. He had underestimated Prince Rui. Although it was said that one could only gain by giving up something, there were some things that were not so easy to give up. However, Prince Rui just gave it up. Prince Kang was far inferior to this scheming and courage. It was no wonder that Prince Rui was favored. It wasn't that easy to add chips to Prince Kang's chips. Lord Luo, Diwu Taiching stepped forward. It was obviously a joyous occasion for his old rival, but he couldn't feel happy. He didn't believe that Luo Peishan was a two-faced person. It could only be said that Prince Rui's methods were outstanding. Moreover, Lu Chengdi's skills as a ruler had reached perfection. If Lu Chengdi hadn't said who recommended Luo Peishan, most people probably would have thought that Luo Peishan was recommended the most. No one would know that the number was so high, and no one would think to check it out. After all, this memorial was directly presented to Lu Chengdi without going through the cabinet. Lord Diwu. Luo Peishan returned the greeting. He was not in the mood to bicker with Diwu Taiching. I'm afraid that I won't have a chance to appreciate flowers with Lord Luo in the future. First, the Minister of the Ministry of Personnel was much busier than the Minister of the Ministry of Rights. Second, you, a neutral person, went to flirt with Prince Kang's people. Did you want to tell everyone that you, the Minister of the Supreme Court, were also going to rely on Prince Kang? What hurt Diwu Taiching the most was that he couldn't go to the Luo mansion anymore. How many times did he have to see those treasures? How could he live? Luo Peishan glanced at him indifferently. He was unhappy, so he didn't want others to be happy. My third daughter's tricolored peony has bloomed. Diwu Taiching couldn't help but rub his beard. Lord Luo, you're really not kind. Was there such a temptation? It was too much. Heh. Luo Peishan put on a fake smile. How am I not kind? I'm just reporting a small matter. For people who didn't like flowers, it was definitely a small matter. But for people who were crazy about flowers, the temptation was no small matter. Not to mention Diwu Taiching. The other people who hadn't left were all itching to beat him up and let him show off. Lord Luo is now the Minister of the Ministry of Personnel. Although it's just a transfer, it's actually a promotion. It's a joyous event worthy of celebration. Why don't we meet at the Luo mansion after we leave the Yamen and have a drink with Lord Luo? The Grand Secretary said. Grand Secretary's words are very reasonable. One by one, they echoed. There were people from all factions in this group, so there was no need to worry about them getting together to discuss anything. They were just here to drink. Of course, the ulterior motive wasn't the wine. Luo Peishan's face darkened. He stared daggers at Ruan Ruizong. Unfortunately, the Grand Secretary was thick-skinned. He was full of smiles and didn't move. Luo Peishan had been killing people in the imperial court recently, but that didn't mean he had no opponents. He felt a lump in his throat. Tomorrow. He really wasn't in the mood today. Then it's settled. The Luo family didn't know what happened after the morning court, but everyone knew that Luo Peishan was now the Minister of the Ministry of Personnel. Few people in the Luo family, from the masters to the servants, were unhappy. Wang Madam even made the decision to give every servant an extra month's salary. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653047. HTML. Click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website, mbicken.com. Chapter 124. Luo Peishan just shook his head and didn't say anything. He didn't want to do anything, so he asked someone to call Jingwan and went to the greenhouse. When Luo Peishan was tinkering in the greenhouse, Jingwan came. She changed into simpler clothes and didn't wear anything on her wrist. She was as usual. Luo Peishan didn't know if she really didn't care or if she kept everything in her heart. At the same time, Luo Peishan felt sorry for Jingwan, but at the same time, he was inexplicably angry. If she really didn't care, how could those who cared about her endure it? They all wanted her to be well, but she was indifferent. Why were they so busy? If she just hid it in her heart, why couldn't she say it out loud? They were all her family. Even if she didn't want them to worry, didn't she know that the more she didn't say anything, the more worried they would be? At least let them know what she was thinking, so they wouldn't be like headless flies. Feeling the coldness emitted by Luo Peishan, and it was obviously directed at her, Jingwan was a little confused. Grandfather, did your granddaughter do something wrong? These words completely ignited Luo Peishan's anger. He caught Jingwan and scolded her. Not to mention Jingwan, the servants serving by the side were all stunned. But listening to his words, it didn't seem like he had offended third young lady. An alert maid hurried to the main courtyard. Hearing the maid's words, Madame Luo hurried to the greenhouse, only to hear, "You are good to this person, good to that person, good to this person, good to that person, meticulous to that person. Why don't you treat yourself better? You are 14 years old now, not 41. What you need is the naivety of a girl. You should have expectations for the future. Even if you have seen through the world, it is not now. You will have to go through a long process of decades. If a little girl wants to go all the way in one step, what do you need us old things for? As your closest relatives, are we not worthy of your trust? Do you have to shoulder everything by yourself?" After venting his anger, Luo Peishan's anger subsided a little. Seeing Jingwan standing there with her head lowered and tears in her eyes, he still felt sorry for her. This child's thoughts were too heavy. It was true that she was open-minded, but because she cared too much about the people she cared about and didn't care about herself, sometimes it felt like she was being deliberate. Although Luo Peishan knew that she was absolutely sincere, these things bound her and she couldn't be truly open-minded. If the shackles were removed, she would be able to live a more unrestrained and flamboyant life, and her life would be more colorful. It had to be said that Luo Peishan was indeed shrewd with age. The time he spent with Jingwan was not long, but he had already accurately identified the problem with Jingwan. Madame Luo, who originally thought that something had happened, slowly approached. Jingwan hurriedly wiped away her tears. She subconsciously didn't want her grandmother to worry. "This child, you're always like this. Your grandfather is right. If you want to cry, just cry. There's no need to hold it in." She glanced at the surroundings. "Everyone, disperse. What are you all doing here?" The servants, whether far or near, hurriedly left. Even the people who served them consciously moved away, leaving only the three of them. Luo Peishan quietly looked at Jingwan for a moment, then continued, "The rise and fall of the Luo family doesn't need you to worry about. How incompetent am I, Luo Peishan, to have to rely on my granddaughter to maintain the family's glory? If the Luo family really falls, then it can only mean that the Luo family's luck has come to an end." It wasn't clear whether it was because of the words of the two, or because Jingwan really couldn't stop her tears. "At least grandfather and grandmother have treated me too well. Granddaughter has nothing to repay them with. Besides, as a member of the Luo family, I should do something. Silly child, it's enough that you have the heart. Everyone has 7 emotions and 6 desires. They have to experience ups and downs. You can't completely reject everything just because you want to reject a certain taste. If you wrap yourself up tightly, perhaps your life will be smooth sailing, but this life will be dull and tasteless. When you're old and look back, you'll find that there's nothing worth remembering. Wouldn't that be too much of a pity? In fact, grandmother sometimes even hopes that you can taste some pain and bitterness. Although it will make us, as your elders, feel distressed, it's better than not having any hope for the life you clearly hope for. You can completely look forward to that kind of life. If you don't even want to try, how can you be sure that you won't get it? Also, whatever you think in your heart, you can tell grandmother. Even if it's a betrayal, grandmother won't blame you. If you feel wronged, you can also vent it out. In the past, when they were in Qian Prefecture, because it didn't involve marriage, Madame Luo naturally didn't see anything wrong with Jingwan. However, after these 2 marriages, she realized that Jingwan was a little abnormal. Although she didn't have to be shy when talking about marriage, nor did she have to be heartbroken when the marriage was annulled, nor did she have to be worried when her future mother-in-law showed displeasure, it was really abnormal that she didn't have any reaction at all. Jingwan cried a good time and felt a lot more relaxed. Perhaps she could live a more free and easy life. When Jingwan calmed down, she also realized that grandfather probably didn't just get promoted to Minister of Rights today. He probably encountered something else. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said these words to her in such a furious manner. "Grandfather, did something else happen today?" Luo Peishan sighs. He turns around and fiddles with an evergreen tree beside him. That Prince Khan can't be helped. He briefly told what happened after the morning court. Although he was schemed against by Li Hongming, he didn't say that Li Hongming did anything wrong. If it weren't for the support of the Empress and the Sun family, he would have been schemed to death. If he ascends the throne in the future, most of the power will be controlled by the relatives of the emperor, and the imperial harem will interfere in politics. The imperial harem interfering in politics? Grandfather, do you mean the current empress and the future empress dowager? Luo Peishan glanced at her. So, this good granddaughter was really impeccable in other aspects, except that she was a little ruthless sometimes. This can't be, right? It should be known that in the previous dynasty, the imperial harem interfering in politics was a very serious matter. In the Qi Yuan dynasty, the Li family controlled the river, and the imperial harem was not allowed to interfere in politics. It was directly included in the ancestral precepts of the Li family. The current empress was the daughter-in-law of the Li family. How could she have the courage to challenge the ancestral precepts? Grandmother, there is no such thing as will or won't. It all depends on who has the right to speak. In my opinion, if Empress Sun only wants to be the behind-the-scenes ruler after her son ascends the throne, her ambition is still a little small. At this time, even Luo Peishan looked at Jingwan with some surprise. Jingwan smiled. In my opinion, if Empress Sun replaces Li Xing, she will be the real powerful one. It's true that you dare to think about it, but others don't dare to think about it. Luo Peishan clicked his tongue. Whether the Empress has the intention of interfering in politics in the future is still uncertain. However, her ambition is definitely not as great as what you said. She probably has never thought about it. Luo Peishan stroked his beard. So, the Empress' ambition is still a little small. Jingwan smiled and said nothing. It was not that she dared to think about it, but that, in the history of her previous life, there was an empress who was a real ambitious person. She was domineering and powerful, and she was ruthless. There were also queens of other countries, female presidents, female prime ministers, and many other outstanding and great women. They were all good. In her view, there was no such thing as a woman born to be weak and become a vassal. Therefore, she did not feel that the Empress' ambition was a big deal. The problem now is that it is not so easy for me to help Prince Kong wholeheartedly. If it is as you think, Grandfather, then the Empress will deal with Prince Kong. The reason why Prince Rui's scheme was so successful was that he grasped the characteristics of Prince Kang's temperament. The Empress is not so easy to be tricked. Moreover, if the Empress interferes too much, it will inevitably arouse the disgust of the other courtiers who support Prince Kong. After all, there are big and small contributions to the ascension of the emperor. Although Ding General Manor is the leader, the Sun family can't take all the benefits. Therefore, it is normal for the same faction to compete for benefits. I am now the Minister of Personnel Affairs. After I squeeze in, I will certainly share the benefits of many people. Then, it is normal for them to take advantage of what happened today to fan the flames in front of Prince Kong. Jingwan thought for a while and said, "In this case, Grandfather, you can do your best. If you can't do it, you can do as they wish and really switch sides to Prince Rui's faction. If so, what will you do in the future, girl? You can't wait until then to break off the engagement with Sun Yilin, right? In the entire capital, there was probably no other person like Sun Yilin who was willing to keep his hands clean despite having such a high status and status. When Prince Rui ascends the throne, even if he can't get rid of the Sun family, Ding General Manor is bound to cease to exist. At that time, it is not impossible for you to return, but that is not what your grandmother and I want to see. Then protect Sun Yilin together. If he has integrity and insists on living and dying with Ding General Manor, then before that, if he did not do anything wrong to me, I can wait for him for a lifetime. If there is a child between us, I will do my best to raise him." After a pause, she continued, "Grandfather, a woman doesn't have to rely on a man to live a lifetime, and it doesn't mean that she is happy to have a man who is good to her. A woman's heart doesn't necessarily belong to the small world in the backyard." At this moment, Luo Peishan finally understood that his good granddaughter was really not a person who cared about love. A man for a lifetime was just her ideal marriage. If she got it, she would be lucky. If she didn't, she would never force it. Grandfather is very happy that you can say these words. Grandfather, you are not qualified to be a scholar official. This Lord Luo's respect for women did not seem to belong to this era. I can only say that grandfather once met a very special woman, and she has a great influence on grandfather. Jingwan immediately glanced at her grandmother with a gossipy look. What nonsense are you thinking? It's not what you think. That person is His Majesty's little aunt, Princess Aeon. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653-048. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bikuga mobile reading website, Bicken.com. You're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.